call the meeting to order. This moment, we're going to call it to order. It's a joint meeting between the Civic City Council and the CRA. It's June 17th, 2021 at 5:30. Purpose, which I'm sure everybody here knows, but I'll give you our opinion. Meeting purpose is to review the draft designs for the CRA's waterfront redevelopment project. A couple of comments. We've got a lot of people. We have a lot of diverse opinions, a lot of strong opinions. Let's keep this civil so we get this meeting done and everybody get a chance to speak. I would ask, if you heard somebody come up and say like 6 times the same thing you want to say, we got it, okay? You don't have to come up, but if you feel like you need to be heard, please do, because it's this is your opportunity. But we try to keep this before midnight, okay? If we can. Half of us will be asleep anyway out here, right? Okay, so I call the meeting to order. We need to do a roll call.
Here.
Carla.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here.
Shu.
Here.
Ivy.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Cosgrave. Here. Adele.
Here.
Jackson. Here. McCoy. Here. Lovett. Here.
All right, I'd like to go ahead and get us started, and before we have our presentation, I want to share a few remarks. I want to talk a little bit about how we've gotten to this point. Last year, the CRA contracted with Kimley Horn to undertake a design process for the waterfront. They did a site visit, and then they held stakeholder meetings. The stakeholder meetings were broken into 5 focus groups, and I want to read off the people who attended those meetings. The first one, that was the Public Works Director, the Director of Utilities, the City Administrator, Councilman Kurt Ivey, and CRA Representative Will Vandenhorst. The second one was comprised of myself, Councilman Charlie Lowrance, Jim Pollard, and Bobby Lee of the Sebring Historical Society. The third one included Casey Hart, Lead Marketing Consultant for Visit Sebring, Highlands County Tourist Development Council, Councilman Tom Detman, Ingrid Garner, and Vicki Brown from the Highlands County Library, District 3 County Commissioner Scott Kerouac, Megan DeJock, the CRA Commissioner. Group 4 was Tom Weitzel, who's the President of South Florida State College, Mayor Shute, Councilman Leonard Carlisle, Vanessa Logsden from Highlands Lakeside Theater, and Kelly Cosgrave, CRA Commissioner. And the last group was comprised of Mark Stewart, City Councilman, Gloria Peters, +1, I'm not sure who the +1 was, from the Highlands Art League, John Story, Senior Director of Marketing for the Sebring International Raceway, and Tracy McCoy, our CRA Commissioner. That evening on March 11th, a public input meeting was held to gather information from the community about what they thought this property should be used for. Kimley Horn analyzed those results and created a report and a rendering for consideration. That was just distributed out to us about a week or so, maybe 10 days. It's not been that long. From that point, we advertised for the meeting and set this up. And now we're going to look at their presentation, allow council and CRA to discuss it, and then we will hear public input. We will then outline the next steps for Kimley Horn and confirm the plan going forward. I would like to remind everybody that this is a process. There's no plan currently that exists, and the issues that are raised that can be addressed, we will address them as they come and make changes as needed. The CRA did not want to begin this process and create something without including everyone. So why are we here and why are we doing this? In 2004, the master plan, which is the document that guides the CRA, referenced the waterfront district. And in there, it said that this plan developed in 1991 focused on the redevelopment of a triangular area extending from the Circle Park and expanding out to the lakefront. The plan calls for residential infill, including high-density lakefront condominium towers, refurbished waterfront park with new band shell, possible hotel, expanded retail along Center Avenue from Circle Park to Lakeview, a marina with approximately 120 wet slips. Elements of this plan will be reviewed and approved or amended based on the updated CRA redevelopment plan. That plan is over 30 years old. It needs to be addressed and acted on or removed. The reason it was included was because citizens used to have access to Lake Jackson along US 27. With the expansion of 27, the beach, along with access to the lake, was lost. Lake Jackson is the very reason that Sebring is located where it is today. The proximity of the circle to the lake was intentional. George Sebring liked Lake Jackson. Today, citizens should have better access to Lake Jackson. The waterfront property is prime real estate and an asset of the community. However, it's underutilized and it's in disrepair. The CRA increased its social media activity over the last week. Hannah Tucker has analyzed some of that data from the posts that we've made, and I would like to have her come forward and share some of those results. Hannah, do you mind coming forward?
I can yell if you want. Got everybody. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go. All right. So, like Mr. Lydell said, I've been doing some numbers on social media just to really see our engagement, things like that. I had some follow-up help with Tracy from Get Fish Lab, just to kind of help narrow those numbers down a little bit more. So you guys have that in front of you if you want to follow along with me. So the first sheet with all the numbers. If you see at the top, I've sectioned it out for each post that we did. That was an inspirational style post to show something that could be on the proposal. If it was something our followers or people that didn't follow us that saw it from being shared, liked, anything like that, if they wanted to see those things and how they felt about it. So we're going to start with Splash Pad. So it says total reactions. That is a like, love, a laugh, things like that. So you have 371 on Splash Pad, 410 total comments. Then I broke it down from there. So you have positive and negative comments. Positive is 298 comments positive, 112 negative. Then I broke it down even more. If one person commented one time, I counted their number once. So if you look at positive only one, that's 233 individual people commented positive. Negative was 29 individual people commenting once. So broke it down again. If they were posting their opinion more than once, so the same person continuing to post their same opinion over and over again, I counted those separately. So there were 65 positive comments that were made repeatedly. Negative, greater than 1, 83 negative comments were repeated, you get what I'm saying. So then I did a percentage on that. So I did full percentage. So I counted every single negative comment, every single positive, whether they counted 85 times their opinion, I counted it in the percentage. So it's 298 and 112. It was a 73% positive for Splash Pad and a 27% negative for Splash Pad. So, and then it goes all the way down. So I took these recordings of the numbers today at 5:06 p.m. was the last time I took a record of it. So those are all very updated numbers as of today, 3 p.m. So very up to date, accurate. That's what people were saying up to today. So that should hopefully explain all of that, and you can look at the other numbers to go by that. So your second sheet should be all these graphs, okay? So one of our questions at our meeting was, how do you know where these people are from? And that's an accurate question and definitely needed to be asked. Who are these people commenting, and should we be counting it? So with the help of Tracy, we narrowed that down and figured out where these people were from. So I did it by county, and then I did it by city to break it down even further. So 88% of the people engaging in our post from the date we started the first impression to today, 88% was from Highlands County. 12% was from surrounding counties, so Pardee, Polk, things like that. So then we broke it down to where everybody was in the individual city. We had 9,198 reactions. So that's whether they shared it, liked it, all of that. 9,198 individual people were interacting with us through this time. 64% of them lived right here in Sebring. The next biggest percentage is 12%. So you go from 64% to 12% for the next group, and it just goes lower and lower. So the people engaging with us were all from Sebring, Florida, the most engagement. The surrounding cities that we got engagement from were Avon Park, Lake Placid, Okeechobee, Wauchula, Lakeland, Orlando, and Frostproof. Orlando and Frostproof were the least amount by only getting 153 and 135 people. So our main people, 5,903, were right here in Sebring. So, any questions, or did I overload you? Good? Okay. This one stays?
All right, finally, I would like to remind everyone that tonight is one more step in a process. Not everything has an answer right now, but we will be working through this and answering the questions as they come up. One of those questions has been, how are you going to pay for it? The answer is we have loan proceeds, we are able to apply for grants, and we will work with partners. We don't know what it will cost because we aren't done with the plan. The CRA is not able to save up money and keep it. Our purpose is to invest that money that we receive back into our district. And now, I'd like to introduce Kenny Horn, Jake.
Testing. Give up on that microphone. Scott, you want to grab it again? Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is James Pankman with Kinley Horn and Associates. I recognize a lot of faces from a couple months ago, so thank you for coming back out. With me tonight is my partner, Don Dodge. Don is our civil engineer. Ed Lindquist is in the back running the other slideshow. This is a duplicate slideshow of what you see here, so if it's a little bit easier to view it there, please do so. As a housekeeping note too, we'll also be providing this to the CRA, and they'll have it online. I know some of the graphics might be harder to see at a distance, so you will have an opportunity to view it online as well. And Scott Minganet, also with Kinley Horn. Scott, Ed, and myself are all landscape architects and park planners. We're very excited to be here tonight. Just want to run through the quick agenda real quick. David talked a lot about the process, and this is a process that we're going to get through together. It involves us coming up with ideas and you giving us feedback on those ideas. It's a back and forth process that is going to take a few months, but we'll get there. We'll review the master planning process in a little more detail. I want to look at the site and understand some of the context. We're going to review the stakeholder and public input that we've received to date. And then we do have 2 draft concept plans that we want to review with you tonight. 2 different ideas, a lot of similar program elements based on what we heard, with different shapes and forms. We have some design imagery that talks about some of the spaces that are proposed on the plan. So we have some imagery that will help kind of back up what those spaces could look and feel like. And then after that, we'll turn it over to questions and comments, I think from the council to the board, and then public comment after that. So from a process standpoint, I like this diagram. This kind of shows where we are. We've had the public and stakeholder engagement sessions, the online survey. Ed, can we get the lights in the back, maybe? We've had our public and stakeholder and online survey process. Based on the input that we received there, we've developed 2 draft master plans that we're going to be presenting tonight, which leads us to here. So we are presenting those tonight really for your viewing and for your feedback. The more feedback and comments that we get, whether you like something or don't like something, that just helps us all more when we go back to the drawing board. From that point in time, we will be revising based on what we hear tonight, taking the 2 concepts and kind of funneling those down into one. That one draft master plan concept can you hear me okay? Sorry. Okay. That one.
It's too small.
It is small, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. This is what we have to work with tonight, so I apologize, but we will make copies of this available online. Once we get comments again tonight, we'll be preparing a draft master plan and presenting that for feedback again, getting comments again, and then preparing a final master plan, presenting that for feedback and comments, making revisions, and then submitting that for final review and approval. So we've got a lot of steps between now and approved master plan. We've got 4 opportunities to come back to the council, the CRA, and the public to get additional input, okay? So I don't expect that we've presented the answer or the solution tonight, but we've presented some ideas, and we want to hear your feedback on those ideas. From a context standpoint, this is the roughly 8.2 acre parcel that we're standing on now. It's along the waterfront, along the bottom side here. It includes the pier. We're also looking at the old parking lot up at this corner, which is about 1.5 acres. And there's about a 0.25 acre triangle of land there as you come into town, which is kind of a great gateway opportunity as you come into downtown and into the park district here. So keeping in mind that we're going to be looking at all these parcels when we consider the master plan. As David mentioned, we did hold a series of stakeholder meetings on March 11th. Those included a lot of the stakeholders that he mentioned, as well as our public meeting that night, and then the online survey, which commenced that night as well. Based on that, we had a lot of interactive boards. We had visual preference survey boards. We had maps asking you to tell us where you live so we can understand how far you are from the site, how you travel to the site, and how you get here. So a lot of great information. People participated very heavily in those image boards, and we got a lot of great feedback on what some of the proposed or preferred elements would be. If you were here that night or you participated in the online survey, you'll remember that we asked you in one word to describe the waterfront park today. And these are some of the words that we got. So things like quaint and beautiful and peaceful. Those types of words really, I think, convey how people view the site and its natural setting, the beautiful lakefront property. But we also had some words such as boring, sad, outdated, plain, which kind of tells us that there's an opportunity for improvements while recognizing and really cherishing the natural site that we do have here. So our plan is really a mix of those different words in that context. We also asked people to describe in one word how they would like to envision the waterfront of the future. So you see that from the mix of words here, it's maybe a lot more positive oriented. We've got things like family, charming, exciting, vibrant, entertaining, peaceful, accessible, safe. We heard a lot about safety last time that we were here. And so again, those are things that we look forward to incorporating into the plan as far as program elements and spaces that we provide. We asked people, where do you live relative to the park? And of the 331 respondents, 264 lived within a 3-mile radius, 43 lived in downtown, and 24 lived within a half-a-mile radius. So a lot of participants in a really close area to the park. We also asked people how they get here, and out of the 386 respondents, 299 got here by automobile, as you see in the large orange circle here. 53 walk or bike to the site, which is here. 22 ride their bicycle to the site, and 12 arrive by boat and park at various facilities. Based on the visual preference surveys that we had, these were the top 4 elements that were responded to as part of those surveys, as well as the online survey. The first one over here is the splash pad and the playground. Next was the boardwalk and the pier. We know, again, from a lot of the conversations that we had, that there's a lot of historic and significant attachment to the pier and to the activities that used to take place on the pier. The number 3 ranked item was an expanded beach. And number 4 was nightlife, so opportunities for maybe drinks or a restaurant or food service, something that creates more of a not 24 hour, but more of a evening and kind of late evening atmosphere within the park site. And those were followed pretty closely by event lawn and food truck, as you see here, water sports, wellness, and then other elements like special events like weddings and making sure that we can accommodate concerts and those types of things. We had an opportunity for people to write on the board or submit comments online. We got a lot of really great comments. Again, we'll be providing these for you to share. But I want to highlight one of the comments that was provided, and it's this one here. And this respondent said that I feel the waterfront should be a versatile place with different activities for people to participate in. It should also serve as a way to create and increase tourism opportunities and create more revenue for our community. And so that comment, I think, really, in a lot of ways, summarizes a lot of the discussions that we had in the stakeholder meetings and a lot of what we heard in that first public meeting. It also tells us that, you know, there's layers of activity for different age groups that we need to be thinking about. So whether it's a playground and splash pad for children or arts opportunities for adults, those are the types of activities that we need to incorporate into the master plan. As we talk about the park site, again, we're here right now, looking at the 8.8 or 8.5 acres. We also want to consider this as a redevelopment opportunity that can be for additional parking, future building opportunities, and then the gateway here. We also want to recognize its importance as you kind of travel into town up to the circle and really celebrate and try to enhance that connectivity from the circle and downtown through the park out to the pier, and really look at this as an interconnected multimodal zone. So with that, we're going to start to walk through concept number one. You'll see that the concept here, again, we've got the existing pier that's been expanded. We envision a pier with maybe different levels, so you can get down a little bit closer to the water. You can have different experiences relative to the water. If you were to go back and look at some of the historic photos of the piers in the past, I've seen everything from rings that people can swing on and jump into the water to different swing activities and different kind of interactive things. So there is a historic precedence for you know, different shape and form of the pier than what you currently have today. And so we wanted to explore options for that. As you, adjacent to that, we've got a smaller pier here, which could be for fishing. You could tie up kayaks or something there as well. And then we've got a palm grove, which serves as kind of back of house, pre or post function event space for the theater and the outdoor dining that they have there. The theater and the arts building are in the same location as they are today. We've got a vehicular drop-off service here, which services the theater as well as portions of the library. The library is in obviously its current location. We have reduced the amount of parking that we're showing here. But then along Lakeview Drive, we've added an opportunity for restaurant and retail shopping. That could be a lakeside restaurant with outdoor dining where you have beautiful views of the park and the lake beyond. This concept does show the Clovelly House in its location here as it is today. That can be enhanced. That could be, again, museum opportunities or retail opportunities if the building were to be repurposed. We've got pathways that lead through the park, and those kind of define the different zones that you see here. So again, working back from the restaurant, as you'll notice when you come into the site here, there's quite a bit of grade change. And so we're accommodating that grade change through some steps, some grand terrace steps that look out onto an event lawn. That lawn can be an opportunity for firework viewing at the 4th of July. That can be concerts, that can be movies in the parks. There's a number of things that could happen within that special event lawn in that location. Stormwater, as we know, is a big concern, and it's a prevalent item that we incorporate into all of our parks. We're showing the stormwater facility here, just in some ways similar to where portions of it are today. That is backed up by a outfitter building and an icon which leads out to a dock. You can have day dock facilities, so people could drive their boats to the site, get off at the park, and then come up into downtown, do shopping, go to restaurants, those types of things. The outfitter that we're showing here, we envision you being able to rent kayaks or paddle boards. Those would be stored on a smaller beach that's been located here. This is the same seawall that you have today. But as you move up from there, we've created an expanded beach in this zone and kind of encase that in a boardwalk type atmosphere where we have shade structures and cabanas that could be utilized to look out over the beach and over the water. And then in the corner, between the beach and the palm grove that I mentioned earlier, we've got the playground and a splash pad. There's been some discussions and I've seen some comments and articles regarding water park. I think it's important to note that that's not the intent of what we're providing here. A water park like you see in Orlando at Wet and Wild or some of those facilities are multi-acre complexes. The splash pads that we do in parks are typically in the 2,500 to maybe 4,500, 5,000 square foot range. So not much bigger than the playground that you have out there today. But again, that would add a different level of activity. Around the promenade around the beach there, we do have an activity lawn as well as some additional opportunities for things like beach volleyball or spike ball. Again, we heard a lot of the comments that we heard were, how do we get people from late teens to 20s to come down to the park? And so those beach type activities are one way to draw them down, to utilize the park site, to utilize the outfitters, to go into downtown and buy drinks and food.
James, just a couple of quick highlights too. If you just flip back to the other concept, just want to highlight a couple of things. As James is walking you through the details of the plan,
Which one?
just go back to the concept.
The second one? I haven't found it. Oh, sorry.
Diagram. Just to go back to the diagram, what we heard a lot during this process was the connection to downtown, tying it to the historic anchor as well as the historic downtown, and also the anchor of a traditional anchor along the waterfront. So when you look at the concept, the diagram, the little bubble diagram here, whether the concept has a shape of a left or a curve or a square or a rectilinear, the master idea, the big idea should be captured in either concept. And this is really what we want to hear your feedback on as well. Even if there's a nuance of a curve or whatever, does the big idea resonate with you as well? So we want to hear those kinds of details. What we heard from a lot of people is coming from downtown, walking to here, and that traditionally blend right out onto the boardwalk, and that concept of extending that view all the way out to the lake and capturing some of those. So even the big picture ideas that you see in the diagram, hopefully are carrying over into each concept, and then the big idea concepts are changed a little bit, how we use each space outside.
Great point, thank you. I'm going to move on to concept number 2 now. Concept number 2, again, has a lot of the same features, just in a different shape that Scott was just kind of alluding to. So you can see that there's, again, a very strong visual and physical connection back over to the circle, which would be up here. That leads you down to a new pier. The pier has some of the similar features that we talked about previously, such as steps down to a lower water level, which allows you to get closer to the water and experience it from a different level and height. We've got a destination opportunity out here. That could be a lookout tower, that could be a restaurant, that could be some sort of icon. The restaurant could be a future phase item once the park takes shape a little bit more. There's a number of opportunities to create a different destination out there. The outfitter that we talked about previously, we've incorporated that idea right adjacent to the pier. So there's an outfitter's building in the background here, and then you can tie up kayaks and paddle boards to the docks here and then go out and paddle around the lake. We've got an expanded beach, and this is maybe one of the most significant differences between the first concept and this one. The first concept I want to go back to retains the existing shape of the seawall and the beachfront. This concept, as you can see, has got a much more natural beachfront that kind of follows the perimeter of the lake and probably returns it to its more historic type of layout. So in doing that and softening that beachfront, we've expanded the beach in sort of a north-south direction here and created more opportunities for that sand play and different gathering spaces on the beach. The event lawn here, we're showing a band shell in this location. Again, that could be your opportunities for concert venues or movies in the park. That would slope up gently to this upper plaza level. And then around the plaza, so this dark line here, or the kind of the line between the grass and the plaza, is how we would transition some of the grade change that we see out here. So this plaza would be up and elevated at more of the street level. That's an opportunity for us to have, again, pop-up tents and different market activities. Those are shown in smaller squares placed around the perimeter here. And then that leads to a restaurant, again, a Lakeside restaurant that is here, and a new one here as well. So a couple of different retail and dining options located up at the street level. parking, which services the library, and then in the off hours, that can service some of the retail here. And again, we also want to capitalize on parking on the vacant lot just down the street. We envision that this would also be able to be accommodated through service vehicles, so you can actually drive a truck or a maintenance vehicle down here to get into the site to maintain the facilities as well. We're showing a playground and a splash pad, again, in a similar location up in the corner here. And then another terrace that could be utilized for pre and post function events for the theater. This concept plan also keeps the library as it is, and the theater, in this concept, the art museum that's located here would be proposed to be located at a new location. So with both of the concepts, some of the key design considerations that we want to make sure that we're being conscious of as we plan these parks, obviously our safety, and that ties into crime prevention through environmental design or SEPTED principles, making sure that we are specifying and understand the maintenance capabilities of the city. The last thing we want to do is overbuild something and over-design something such that it's a long-term maintenance burden. So working with staff to understand what those capabilities are from both the hardscape maintenance as well as landscape irrigation. All of these things are going to, ultimately be maintained by the city. So we want to be smart about those decisions in terms of what we invest in. From a safety and SEPTED standpoint, again, making sure that we have clear sight lines into the park from the upper levels. We would envision that some of the tree canopy could be limbed up. We want to keep other shrubs low so that you maintain those sight lines so that police and people who are doing drive-by surveillance can clearly see into the park. And in both of these concepts, removing the Civic Center from its current location really helps to accommodate that. Also, recognizing that although it is a very nice sized parcel of land at 8.5 acres on the waterfront, we still want to make sure that we maximize the space that we use. And we want to provide different levels of programming really for every square foot that we have, so that we can have flexibility of use and provide a park space that is well designed and comfortable for daily use, for weekly use, but then also accommodates those special events such as 4th of July or triathlons or a number of other events that we've talked about. So I want to run through some of the design imagery now, just to give you, again, a picture of what some of these spaces could look like. From the beachfront, we envision things like families building sandcastles, again, capturing maybe a larger or an older teen audience or early 20s with beach volleyball opportunities, things like spike ball. Also being functional and providing shaded seating opportunities while you're out looking over the waterfront. From a waterfront activity standpoint, from the outfitter that we talked about, a small support building that could store and maintain kayaks and paddle boards, that could be an opportunity for a public-private partnership where somebody could invest in a business there, and then a visitor could go and rent one of those kayaks and go out on the lake. So you've got a couple of options of how that could look. Maybe some additional waterfront dining that could be associated with that. Again, considering who our user group is. Adaptive rowing and adaptive paddling for people who might have disabilities is a huge trend right now in recreation. And this could be a great facility to provide an opportunity for like that.
James, one of the things on the exact images that you see, so we're at this high level describing the activities that we just described in plan view. We haven't gotten into the level of detail to get into architectural character and color and style and some of those other things. So right now we're at the high level. What's the use? How's it demonstrated, and how's it demonstrated in its surrounding? So when you see a building, don't necessarily, that's not what we're proposing. What we're saying is the use associated with that and how it looks and interacts with the surrounding features. So think of that when you see these individual items.
From an educational standpoint, opportunities to, maybe in shade structures where you're also laying out constellations that would be visible at night. Again, celebrating the site's natural vegetation and waterfront, diagrams showing what type of fish are in the lake, what type of fauna is found on the site, those types of things. Interactive displays that might give you a hint of what the Civic Mansion looked like on its location. There's a number of great opportunities that we can incorporate into signage and public art from that standpoint. Again, from an activity standpoint, trying to activate the waterfront, special events down to daily uses. So providing spaces for exercise and wellness activities on the waterfront, while also being able to accommodate the 4th of July is something that we would envision. Providing those opportunities for maybe lakeside dining and outdoor seating where you can look out over the park and out at the lake beyond and enjoy the sunset. Celebrating our history. The view in the upper left here shows one of the old piers actually with the swings that was attached to it. And you can kind of get a glimpse of that historic connection up to the circle up top there. Providing a lot of opportunity for swimming and utilizing that beach. Maybe celebrating the race history and the culture around racing that you have in Sebring. Looking for those elements, again, that can be tied into signage, educational signage, and public art.
And sometimes the historical is just the use that people came back. We heard a ton of stories from people that actually came down and would gather in certain areas. And it was more of this transformational historic. I'm building a legacy with my kids, or I'm sharing something that I used to do when I was a kid. And only the good stuff, not smoking behind the buildings or whatever, but it was only the good things that we used to do as kids. And so you start to bring your kids, your grandkids back, and you're transposing that same feeling of the place and the waterfront into new places and building new memories in that historical concept as well.
Yeah, we heard Scott's had a lot of great stories about things that happened at Teen Town and on the park in the past. And really the goal here is to provide, a new space with some updated amenities for children, young now to make their own memories for the future. So that's part of what we want to get your feedback on tonight. From a landscape standpoint, understanding where we are contextually within the state, incorporating native Florida vegetation to really enhance the site, to provide shade, to create sight lines, and really celebrate the waterfront. Again, providing opportunities for daily use as well as special events. So car shows, food truck rallies, farmers market, craft shows. Not that these are the events, but we envision spaces that could accommodate similar events within the park here. From an event lawn standpoint, again, creating those opportunities for a mix of events for different sizes.
And also tiered facilities who are working with the grade. How we work with some facility that's up top to maximize the views and the vistas, especially during the sunset or out to the water. But you kind of elevated above. There's a certain feeling when you start kind of feeling like you're looking down over another space, and you're able to watch what's going on, but you're also to experience the view and the vista, so you're not necessarily distracted by that while you dine or while you eat or while you entertain in a higher level elevation. And these would also accommodate some of the grade changes so that we can have some of the things that James talks about in terms of safety. Can we get some of these pathways that are actually vehicular rated so that they can get in, they can do it to where they get eyes on the space, and that's going to be very important for safety.
Waterfront activities, opportunities to rent kayaks, paddle boards that we talked about, a little outfitter that could help service those. Celebrating the pier, recognizing, as we talked before, that the pier has taken on different shapes and sizes over the years. And so incorporating things like shade to make it a comfortable atmosphere today, making sure that we have fishing and different opportunities, all the things that you've had historically in the past.
James, go back one more too, I'm sorry. One thing I wanted to point out, you can't very see it on the lower left-hand portion. There's actually an artwork. All it is a northing and an easting. But that's part of the artwork. That happens to be in a park in Tampa. And so there's ways that we can use graphics, we can use historical context to create art for a park. That happens to be in northern and easting of the old Sparkman Wharf. That was actually the nautical direction on how mariners used to find their way to that space. So it actually told a story, and there was elements within the park that led you to a series of events to tell you more about that story. And so I think you have a great history here of arts and connectedness. And so there's stories that can be told through the character of the buildings and the walls and the paint and the artwork.
Celebrating that pier, providing shade, all the furniture that you need to sit out there and have a comfortable day on the pier, but also re-envisioning that and what it could look like for the next several decades. From a playground standpoint, there's a lot of great opportunities to incorporate theming. This shows kind of an old shipwreck, but that could also be a race car theme. So there's a number of things that different vendors would provide, which help create a very unique setting. We talked about maybe something that would be very unique to Sebring, such as towers and catwalks or bridges that connect those towers, which could be placed within the existing canopy trees. So a playground that's not just a typical slide and swing set, but something that allows kids to get up and experience those trees at a different level. Plaza that we talked about, incorporating lots of space for those flexible uses. You can see the buildings here. Those are permanent structures, but those contain art festivals as well as farmers market, and then making sure that we have plenty of usable pedestrian space as well. Talking about the splash pad again, that can take on a number of forms. As I mentioned, normally it's around 5,000 square feet maximum, but those can be flush jets with lights that are choreographed to music. So these jets go up and down. They can be built features which contain spilling buckets that I'm sure you've seen at other facilities. So those things are really great and fun activities for the kids. Splash pads can also be a little more integrated into the site, like you see in some of these concepts here. So working with the terrain, creating natural features out of rocks, and then incorporating the water into those elements. And then again, as I mentioned, making sure that we're accommodating the special events as well as the daily uses. So weddings, 4th of July, concerts, movies in the park, while also simply being able to take a nice stroll to the playground or enjoy the waterfront. Making sure that every square foot of the site is designed to accommodate those mix of uses and different scales. So with that, I think we'll turn it back to you and open it up for any questions or comments.
At this time, I get some comments or opinions from council. Anyone? Can I start down with Mr. Dennis? Yeah. Sure, pass it on down.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of observations. Number one, even prior to this evening, and then looking at the two concept plans, has been a big question of parking. So I want us to really take a very, very good hard look at parking, especially considering our demographics. There's not many people my age that necessarily want to park across the street on Lakeview Drive. We can park over here. Can I bring your attention to concept number one for a moment? The lower left corner of concept number one appears to be a boat dock. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Well, over the years, I'm sure that other constituents out here will know that we have struggled having close proximity with boat docks to beaches. I would not at all be in favor of having a boat dock there, though I have a boat and it would be nice, but I do know what the concept and what the problems are as a result of that. As you all know, I was police chief here for 19 years, and that was one of my biggest headaches, believe it or not. The intrusion of boats into the swimming area. It's a very unsafe practice, and it's something that I would not support. Let me make sure I don't miss anything here. On concept number two, right in the middle on the left next to the pier, it says boat rental. May I assume that that would be for small rental boats like kayaks and things like that, not motorboats, correct?
Correct.
I would support that. On concept number two as well, right at the very bottom, as opposed to concept number one, I no longer see the Cloverly House. I would like to see the Cloverly House brought into the plan, whether it be concept number one or two, and allow that structure to serve the purpose of the retail shops or restaurants or whatever purpose it might best serve. The big deal is there's no Civic Center here. What we're sitting in right now, there isn't one here. You see a couple of hang on a second now. But right there, above these two concepts in front of us all, looks like the old Barnett Bank, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what that is?
Yes, sir.
And it says on there, Sebring Cultural Center, which I might assume could house our historical society, maybe our arts league, our art league. And if it's large enough to have a Sebring Civic Center, should we want to have a civic center? And I can't imagine a city that wouldn't, but that's me. That's my concept. To drive into downtown Sebring to see that, rather than to see downtown flea market, would be a home run in my concept. Like concept number 2 a little bit better, only because I like the natural flow of this beach area and the adjacent lawn event. The volleyball area that is on there also meshes very nicely into that, with the restrooms being in close proximity to both. I'm not sure we need to spend the kind of money at the end of the pier to have a restaurant and an observation deck if we're going to have a restaurant and shops near Lakeview Drive that we would be able to see the area from as we sit out there. But I guess I'm mixing these two up and giving you some thoughts of mine and ideas that might better serve our entire community. And if I think of something else, I'll ask for the microphone back, but I will pass it to Mr. Carlisle at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Honestly, I don't like either one of them. I like the bigger beach. I like that because we have a very small beach, and I grew up here, and when I grew up, we had a major beach on the other side of Lake Jackson. It was a beautiful beach, and it got destroyed. So we do need more beach for the public. Changing the pier, I dislike totally. As a kid, I spent hours and hours at the pier. Saturday afternoons, if I was working, I was at the pier swimming, and I don't even like the way it is right now because you can't jump off into the pier. You know, so I think we need the bigger beach. I agree with Mr. Devlin on the house. I think there's enough room to leave that house. I just think you can, if everybody works together, I think we can have a good concept. I agree with Mr. Devlin about the Barnett Bank building. We may be jumping the gun on this, I don't know, because this was just given to us today. But I understand the lower part of it would be for the Historical Society. Possibly putting some raised paraphernalia there to bring some racetrack back. Upstairs would be where you're sitting now, Civic Center. So I think as a town, as a city, as a family, we need to work together on this. Thank you.
Back to the proposed Sebring Culture Center, or the Civic Center, if you want to call it that. The one thing I think that's going to be a major hurdle, and that will be as time goes on, I understand that the CRA may be in a position to purchase the building, correct?
Correct.
But not to do any of the renovations, is that correct?
We're at the very, very beginning phases of that process. We've talked to a few of the people from the Hall of Fame. We've talked with some of the folks from the Art League.
Okay.
Have not talked to the Historical Society or anything like that, but I think that there's the ability to, whether it be through grants or through their own funding, to accomplish the renovations will need to be done.
And then on the city's position, it would be the city's responsibility then to, if the concept was that the second floor would become our civic center as we know it here, would be on our dime.
Potential. I mean, that's, we're not at that level of
Well,
discussion.
no, I understand that, but I don't know how we can push forward with any of these plans until we know where our civic center is going to be.
But right now,
If our civic center stays here, then that's a moot point. If we're moving, we need to know what that dollar figure is. These are all taxpayers and they're gonna want to know the same thing. That's all, that's my main point.
so what we're showing you right now is basically,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
we're showing you as a solution to a problem, which is only illustrating that it's not something that we have to trip over and be totally concerned with. There's a way to get around it, and yeah, I've got some remarks about that. So when it comes to back over here to us, or y'all get through, I'll be happy to comment more about that.
And to be perfectly honest with you, I truly do support this idea. I really like this idea. I think that puts us in a different class, if you will, of a city, to see something like that when you drive into our downtown, that there's our cultural center staring you right in the eye. We have to just make sure we can afford it.
One other thing, I like to see the concerts and stuff downtown. I like to see it in the summer. So I'm definitely against the band show. And that would kind of walk, lanes as well.
Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you very much to our CRA for all the work they've done. I want you all to understand, this is voluntary on their part. They don't get paid anything for this, and they put hours and hours into this, trying to make this city a little bit better. And this is one of the areas that the citizens have asked us as a city council and the CRA to address, and that is what can be done to make the city better. So yes, some of it's downtown, but a big part of it is this waterfront area down here. So we can leave it the same way it is now, and we're gonna get the same results. Or we can try to change it and all work together to make it better for all of us. A couple of points that were brought up about the different concepts is the Historical Society could get on board with this and display some of the history of Sebring in this park through murals and other different things like, race cars or whatever. And they could work with this concept instead of just digging their heels in and saying, no, we don't want to change anything. We want to leave everything the way it is. Well, I'm sure all of you that have talked to anybody under 50 years old will tell you there's not a lot to do for kids around here or for young adults. We're trying to address some of that. Now, getting onto the specifics here a little bit, I'll talk about first the Civic Center. There's a couple options there. Yes, the Barnett Bank is one of them. We also, the city owns Women's Club on the other side of the lake. That could be turned into a civic center. There's other options with the Civic Center, or we could leave the Civic Center here and just do part of this plan. That's another option. There's a lot of options. It's not set in stone. Going on beyond that, I'm going to say, and specifically, I do like plan number 2 a little bit better because it's got some more open area than plan number 1 does, and a little bit more beachfront. I'm not necessarily for the restaurant up by the street. I'd rather see that a little bit more open, or maybe the parking lot is extended so that we have parking on this side of the street and not just across the street. And that parking lot could be used for special events when the time comes for the triathlon and things like that. If y'all came here last weekend to see the triathlon, how many people were down here? Would you raise your hand? You know how jam-packed it was up there.
It's terrible.
If we have some more area up there and a bigger event lawn, you know what? We can attract these events and have a little bit more room. And for them to put their bicycles, so they can come up from the lake and jump on their bikes. So I'm in favor of the bigger event lawn, and also probably not the restaurants right along the street. We've got restaurants downtown, we're moving a few of them in there, we'd like to bring people down that way. But there's a couple little specifics here. We could move, boat docks over to where the fisherman's pier is, so it doesn't interfere with the swimming area. And then just have the paddle boards on the, I guess, south side of the pier. As far as expanding the pier, I think some expansion is good. I'm not sure I'm all for a restaurant being out there unless we get somebody that really wants to spend some money. Those are a couple of my comments, but I would really just say that I want to say again, thank you to the CRA and everybody that's involved in this. If we'll work together, we can come up with an awesome place down here. And but it does take us all working together. And so I would just ask for your cooperation, your ideas. Don't dig your heels in and say, we want to leave it the way it is, because you know what? We're going to have the same results if we leave it the way it is. Thank you.
CRA for taking on this project and kind of putting themselves out in front of everybody. But I think if you look out here now, we've got to do something with our lakefront. I'll say it's deplorable at this point in time. If you look at the retention ponds that fill up, and then we have to dredge the retention pond and clean them up. We've got a beautiful area, so we have to look at doing something. And I think that I'm kind of a mix between both of these. If you take the number 2, where you have the larger beach, but take the top half, or top 25% of the number 1 with the original pier there, and superimpose that on that, and then you have more lawn event space, which I think the tiered seating, I like from number 1, but you could put that into number 2, kind of make it from that standpoint. I'm in favor of a civic center. I think the town needs it. It's an event happening place. It's used. It's not a moneymaker for the city of Sebring. We lease it out, and it doesn't return the cost of what it is. But I think it gives our city just some kind of ambience to have something that we can hold meetings such as this, or you can have a wedding in that. Be it here, if we have to incorporate it here, it's the Barnett building, and if you could dress up that front even more than what you've shown, I think there's a lot of possibilities that are there, but we've got to do something with our waterfront. I think a combination of both of these is if it's a good start where the finish is. I've seen the project that was done back in late 91. If you all have, a lot of you have been here since that time and seen the original waterfront plan, they had a boardwalk going from the Elks Club up to Pine Street. And talk about homeowners that probably were up in arms about that, but the concept has been there, and they've recognized that we need to do something with our waterfront. It's been there for a long time. We've got a gym here, we've got a jewel here. These events that come here, all the events that I attend, I talk to people. They absolutely love the city. They absolutely love the people. They say everybody here is so friendly. And said it's a nice town, it's very unique, and we want to keep it that way. We want growth, but we want controlled growth. But also, I think for our citizens, we have to provide them with recreation and something that is a feel-good for our city. So I'm kind of a mixed bag to smash these two together and give us keep the original pier, keep the kind of the north half of the number 2 or number 1. And then the larger space, but I've got a great other comments that have been made here.
So I want to start off by expressing my appreciation to the CRA as well. As already been said, they're volunteers and they've taken a lot of flack in the last month or so, as I'm sure most of you guys know. But without a doubt, this area is underutilized. At times, it's not safe down here, and this building is part of that because you can't see what's going on back there. I feel like both of these plans are innovative and there's good points to all of them. I do have some concerns as well, obviously, which has also been stated. One is parking. I don't think on plan number 1 or number 2, the existing parking for the theater is enough to handle the theater. I'm sure there's numbers to corroborate that, am I correct? Like if the theater is full, there's not enough parking.
Right.
So that's important, obviously. I feel like we all need to be liable, as it seems like we are this evening, to work together on this. There are certain aspects of both of these I really love. I love number 1 more than number 2. The event lawn with the steps, to me, is really fun looking, and I think it'd be utilized in a bunch of different ways. I'd like to see pickleball instead of volleyball. That's gonna happen. And the splash pad, every young family that I've spoken to want that. All of them. Without a doubt, all of them. So, that's where we have to be liable. There almost is a separation in age groups with this whole premise. The younger people want this, and some of the older people, and I'm one of them, are not so aggressive towards it. But we need to think about all of Sebring, and a lot of the older people, you're gonna be dead in 20 years. They're not. So we need to think about the future, right? Me too. I'd like to keep the existing pier. I think the existing pier should stay. I like the double level of it and expanding it a little bit. Yeah, it's just a lot of really innovative and cool stuff. And I love Sebring. I live here and I work here, and I think we would be so proud to have this in some form or fashion. That would just make everybody smile. And so I'm all for it. I do have that same concern about the Civic Center and the Art League and Historical Society. I think that this building, this picture, I don't know if you guys got all this. I don't think so. But it's a mock-up.
We'll show it to them in a minute.
Yeah, it's a mock-up of the old bank up here. And it's right here. It's right here. You're looking at it. And it has the square footage, I believe, to compete with what we currently are using for the Civic Center and the other off-site buildings here. And lastly, and this is going to make somebody mad, I live in a historic house, and I've worked in the Kenilworth Lodge for 100 years. So I love historic properties. But the two houses up there, the Weigel, am I saying that right? The Weigel house and the Club Valley house. Of the two, I'd rather keep the Weigel.
Keep both.
Pardon me?
Keep both.
Keep both. Well, maybe we could put the restaurant in the Weigel and use the Club Valley for something else. I don't know. But there also is in historic properties the concept of business. You can't keep throwing money at something that's not being productive financially. And both of those houses not only have the groups using them contributed and spent and raised big dollars, but the city has done that as well over the years. And they're still, they still need work. So that's all I got to say. Thank you. No applause?
I have a few comments. One, I like the expanded beach concept that you had, and concept 2. I'd like to know what's the use of the palm grove?
Yeah. So the palm grove is really just a place, palm trees, tall palm trees, maybe string lights, tables and chairs underneath. That's right adjacent to the outdoor dining area by the theater. So it provides opportunities for kind of pre and post function. If you have a theater event, you can have a post performance event out on the terrace. Just really kind of a landscape garden area.
Okay, that's nice. And I think that area could be used to supplement other things. You can still have trees there, palms, but
Sure. This was kind of the character of that with tables and chairs and.
okay, I looked at the plan and it's so tight. Okay, so you answered my question, thank you. Beach, I like concept two. Some issues, and I think you're gonna get to those, at least how to solve that, or get a plan for that. I believe in the culture center as well. It can be called a culture center, but I think it should have Dextro still attached to it. That's the historical part of that. That guy's name up there. When I say that, I didn't mean to sound too rough with it, but I think it should still remain the name. I think the Historic Society and the Art League should also have a place somewhere in connection with downtown here. It's a great project. We need it. People have been here, you know what it looks like out there now. And it's okay, but it's not really representative we're trying to go for here in the city. Now, I will say, I don't have the memories of this place since I'm a transplant. I've only been here around 7 years in Highlands County. So I don't have all this memory here that I have to give appreciation for the people who do. So I'm big on changing things, just to change them. But I like the concept. We definitely need changes there. I think, again, the CRA, just like you have been, and everybody kind of showing the interest, this is how you finally get things done. It may not be the direct route, but you get things done that way. So at that point, I'll shut up. And we'll go to comments and questions from the CRA.
Okay, thank you. Where did Scott go?
He's gone.
We'll show the rendering of what this Civic Center concept looks like at the end.
I can pull that up.
You can pull it up.
Do I now or later?
You can pull it down from that. So if you picture driving into town from the south end of town, and you're coming into the South Ridgewood, currently that is the antique mall. It was the Bank of America building, the Barnett Bank. And what we did was we took that rendering and dressed it up. So we put glass from floor to ceiling, the 2 stories in the front. It's been stuccoed and painted. And then you could put the palm trees there, or if you wanted to create the illusion of being able to see in. And we talked with a few folks from the Hall of Fame, and if you picture coming into town and seeing a race car, kind of like a showroom concept. And that front area being available for the Hall of Fame to display race memorabilia. And then around towards the left, and I'm just trying to give you kind of a visual concept of some of the thoughts we've had. You have it set up in a museum type scenario where the Historic Society could put pictures and displays of the Sebring history from the beginning through the World War II years with Hendricks Field, the racetrack, the citrus and cattle industry and how it's contributed. And then maybe as it wraps around over on the other side, you've got room for the Art League, and they could put their displays, perhaps traveling or visiting exhibits that can be out there. Use it for social events to draw people into it. Perhaps like the first Friday of the month, there's a brand new art exhibit that's on display, and have wine or hors d'oeuvres or something like that to bring people in. The second floor is, each floor is about 15,000 square feet. The second floor you could make into the Civic Center. And there's a few walls over on the side that face the lake. It could be, you could take parts of that out and replace it with windows so that you could have a view of the lake. You could put partitions in there, so if you want a smaller event, you could partition it off. If you needed it for a bigger event, you've got plenty of room. You could wire it correctly so that you've got speakers that are located throughout, so that if it is a big event, everyone can hear. You can work on the audio visual. Put a catering kitchen in there, so if you were having an event that required catering, they've got a facility back there to be able to do it. And maybe even some of that room is used for the art league, for art studios or something like that, or their classroom space. It's very big. This is only about 8,000 square feet. So that second floor is 15,000 square feet. You're almost doubling the size of what we had. This is so early in its infancy that this board over here just saw it for the first time too. So I don't want to get the cart before the horse and say, yes, this is definitely something that we're working with, but I have had conversations with the owner. Yes, it is for sale. Yes, we are in a position that we could purchase it, and we would have to figure out the rest of it as we go. As I said earlier, this is merely a solution or an example of a solution to a problem. Another solution to a problem is the parking. We've got parking, it's the shuttling around between the different locations. So another solution, besides just creating more parking space, another solution could be that we could work out a deal with the theater to provide, whether it be through volunteers or paid employees, purchase the club golf carts that could shuttle people from the parking area down to the theater. I like that roundabout that's in there. It'd be a very easy way to drop people off and come back and pick up more people. The point is that all of the things that are brought up, with a little bit of creativity, there's a solution to the problem. I think right now the problem goes back to what you guys have said, is that this property is underutilized, and it's got some safety concerns, and there's some better things that we could do. So as we have these conversations, I think that there's a lot of things that we could do to solve and fix these problems. I'm going to turn it over to my board to make comments first and let the public see that.
We're going to go back to the slideshow or keep this up?
Keep it up.
I wanted to just go in and touch base on the two plans. I, like some of you, really like aspects from each plan. So I kind of think it would be nice to mesh together, different details. So I'm going to reiterate some of the things that were already spoken. I do like the bigger beach. I do like keeping the pier the way that it is, but adding those decks, I think would be used greatly, and would also add some architectural, additional architectural features to the pier. And I like the idea in concept one with the circular drive and then that covered area that's at the edge of the theater. I think that would be very beneficial to people as they're waiting to walk into the theater, to have that covered area, to just kind of provide everyone from the heat or rain. So I really like that concept. Also, it would give people who are visiting, who don't know where they're at, the opportunity to come in and make a little loop and find their way back out if they're, driving around kind of aimlessly. I do like the idea of the steps at the event lawn in concept one. I do feel like they would be utilized as a good use of the grade change. I'm a little concerned about some of our larger trees in the area, so I really want to make sure that we consider those and try not to eliminate the really nice big trees that are here, because they're definitely. I do also think having taken into consideration with the beach and the larger beach with the walkways, I do want to make sure that we consider the triathlon aspect, so that way that there's ease of transition when there's those activities happening from the water, as they transition to the bikes, and making space for that is important. I think we have an asset here where we can keep utilizing that and offering that as an advantage to our community. And also other types of water activities. As people have seen, we've had some recent changes, and some people coming in and doing things here that we don't normally have, that the TDC's been working on, and I want to encourage that as part of the plans that we have that. I did like the idea of the boating aspect being maybe on the outside edge versus on the inside edge for actual motor rides, vehicle, boats coming in and out. I do like the splash pad concept, the Palm Grove and the playground, where those are at and how the size and things like that, could just be placed as you guys, kind of morph this into a different layout. I as well was concerned about the Civic Center being gone. I do feel like it's an important aspect of what we have to offer. I do feel like when this gets done, activities at the Civic Center will grow. As David mentioned, this is our first look at this as well. So this wasn't something I was thinking about when I was thinking about discussing that today. I was thinking it would be something we would consider actually being on this property. Because I think looking at the lake and having the view, of the lake and the vista of this whole waterfront would be an asset to an event space as well, because there's nothing like it on the lake. So I am a little sort of advocate to David's idea, but I'm not opposed to the consideration of what he's discussing, because I do think the things that do exist in this space today are important. I do think the history of Sebring being presented and it being done respectfully is important. I do believe, that we can all work together to make that happen. I do believe the art leagues, also just as important. I grew up coming down here. I took art classes in the buildings that are here and, played on this, these playgrounds and hung out at this property and went to that library. Being only a couple blocks down the road from where I grew up, I do have all those fond memories. So, but I think that this concept is so exciting, and it's so refreshing, and and the design aspect of it, and what we can do is just going to be something that will draw people here to visit, and it'll have them come back again, and it'll help us encourage just the activity that we're trying to create in downtown. And I think there would be a lot of people that would be really excited to see this happen that aren't here, and then to see people who can come into this and grow up in this would be an asset to it. So I'm very excited about what's in front of us, and I think that we can really make strides to accomplish some really neat things here.
I'll start by saying something I said last evening at the CRA meeting, and so I apologize for those of you who were there that have to hear it again. But as we've had meetings go on over the last few months, we've seen more and more people come to our meetings, and I think that's really important with the community engagement. I think that means that we're doing some things that are outside the box that are getting people interested. And I think that means that there might be some transformational change. And I know there's always growing pains, and I know that there's compromise, but I think this is something that's really exciting, and I think it's great when the community gets together and gets to hear all parts. So really grateful for all of y'all being here tonight. In regards to the plan, I think, again, like everyone else said, there's definitely a way to merge these both and combine the best components of each. I do lean more towards the second concept. I do like the bigger event lawn and the longer beachfront. I do agree that maybe we don't want, a boat docking area as close to a beach area where people might be swimming, so maybe putting that to the other side. There's a big component that goes into what we do, the live, work, play. So as we continue to grow our community, we need that quality of place aspect too, that make people want to live here, that make people want to move here. We constantly hear that there needs to be more things for our kids and our adolescents to do. And this is one of these ways that we can do that also in an inexpensive manner, because we've seen things come through in the past and it can be a really big splash in the beginning, but then the cost comes into play, and then over time there's less support, and then those things leave. So this being a low-cost municipal park option, I think offers a lot of opportunities for our children and our adolescents. Safety, I think, will be huge. Like you said, some of this current Civic Center blocks a lot of what we can see. I'm from Highlands County. I grew up here. I can say that, when I was able to drive and get out on my own, I was not permitted to come out here after dark by myself for safety reasons. And now as an adult, I wouldn't come out here still at night by myself, just out of safety concerns. And so I think if we can improve that too, that's an added benefit. The splash pad and the playground, I think, would be a really great addition. We hear that all the time, that people would like a splash pad. And that's a happy medium. I know 20 people, there's some very large families here in town, 20 people drove to Aquatico last weekend just to go there for a couple of hours before they got rained out and came back into town. If they had something like this here, and they were young children, children under 5, if there was a splash pad here and a playground here and it was safer and it was more open, I imagine that family would have come here. And that family would have needed to go and eat somewhere, and that brings people up into the downtown area to use our shops. And so all these components come together, and I think they'll all play into making our community a little bit better. And I think there's aspects down here too that could be utilized more. Our theater is so important. Our theater puts on amazing shows. And I don't know if our community always knows about it. And so I know there's billboards, but if you bring people down to this area to see these new improvements, maybe they'll also see, oh, there's a theater. Maybe there's ways that the theater can do, you know, little mini shows before a show comes out, open to the public, and you can see it outside. Just bring more awareness to what we have, the library too. And so I like the larger event lawn, because if we don't have the Civic Center here, that doesn't mean you still can't put up a large tent area for events. You can still do weddings. You can still do other types of events like the triathlon. So there's a larger event space that allow for larger tented areas. And I don't think it ever really hurts to have more restaurants and shop options. After the meeting last night, I heard some people saying, where should we go? And then there were comments, oh, well, nothing's open after 8. Well, wouldn't it be great if we had some options in the downtown area that they could have immediately gone to after our meeting? So I'll stop being long-winded, but I do think that we'll definitely be able to find some compromise here, and I think that we have some really exciting opportunities.
I think this is really exciting to see the concepts and what you guys have put together. Kind of reiterating a lot of what everybody said at this point, now that we're down to the final two. But I do prefer concept 2, the longer beach and event lawn, but I would like to see the Clovelly House and the Museum of the Arts still incorporated. I do like that roundabout that's by the theater and that covered area, so that kind of from the roundabout and arts back to the theater. I do like that component, and I'm wondering if in these restaurants and shops and pop-up flex space in these areas, if there is a way to incorporate all of our historic buildings so we don't have to remove them all. If there is potential for that, just looking at the layout, even if they're not necessarily used for the same purpose, but they can be repurposed or refaced. So we're still able to hold on to some of that. I think that that would be great. Definitely the Clovelly House, it does look like it still could fit. I don't know about the other, but it is nice to see that we still have been able to maintain a lot of those historic components. I do prefer the more historic pier built out than the restaurant and observation deck. So I do like that look, because I do feel like that's kind of a historic icon for people coming to the area. There's so many photos just everywhere online, and that pier just seems to be that kind of focal point for people. So I do like the build out on the existing pier, and I do like what everybody has said about the boat rentals and not having any mechanical boats near the beach, because that can be a little bit of a concern, but I do like having that boat rental, like more kayaks and paddle boards. I don't think that would necessarily interfere with the beach front. I think that would maybe complement it. So you're close by when you attempt to paddleboard, you can't get more than 6 feet out. I do like the progress. I like the event lawn. I do like having some options. It's nice to hear that we have some other options for our Civic Center. I do agree with Megan that, you know, the event lawn, having an open lawn like that, there is a lot of opportunity for tents and for different transitional spaces. And even if there are events, you know, having several tents for different, you know, pockets of experiences versus just having one space that you're kind of confined. You know, so I do like the fact that this is opened up, and would love to see more about some other opportunities of the relocation of the Civic Center, because I do think it is important for our city to retain that in some aspect. And I love the idea of the cultural center and being able to relocate the historical society there and have more of the history aspect of it. I think that's fantastic. But I know I've kind of reiterated a lot of what everybody said, so I won't take more of your time. I'll pass it along.
Okay, I'm super excited too about being able to actually see all of these in color. I'm definitely leaning towards concept 2, but I think that we really need to kind of merge some things together. As a theater mom, I think the roundabout is crucial. I think we really need to have that. I don't know what we would do without it. And I love the idea of having like the awning or covered walkway, you know, where people can walk when it's raining and things like that. So I think that that's a really great addition. concept one. As far as the Moda building goes, I feel like I could go either way. I really think that our arts and historical and all of that should kind of be together. I'm absolutely loving this new concept of the Sebring Cultural Center. I think that being able to have all of that in one building and this be the gateway when people are coming into town, that's a pretty phenomenal idea. As far as the pier goes, I can see both ways. I think it would be really great to be able to pull your boat up and have dinner right out there at the pier, but I also love the idea of keeping it historical and, just having kind of the different levels and maybe a little more to add to. I love the idea of the swings on the pier. That was really fun. But as far as the beach area, I definitely love the larger beach area. I think that being able to keep that natural line makes more sense to me. As far as because I'm trying to compare the two, as far as the event lawn goes, I think that there's benefits to both of them. Again, like Tracy said, I think that everybody's kind of touched on a lot of it, but the main thing that I wanted to say is I think that this would actually really help the theater. I think it kind of makes it the center of everything to be able to have that down here and have all of this around it. And I think it's really important that we make sure that we make sure that there's parking available for the theater. I think that that's probably my only concern with both of these concepts. But I think that that's definitely something, as David said, that we are aware of, and we would definitely look to find a solution for that.
Just real briefly, I lean toward concept 2, but from concept 1, I like that pier, I like the roundabout, and I like the steps. So I'll belabor it. All right, with that, we're going to move over to public comments. So the way this is going to work, if you'll go back there to the table where Christy and Hannah are, you'll need to sign in. We need a record of who you are before you come up. And then if you'll just line up behind the podium, we'll get started.
A wallet was found in the woman's bathroom. If you're missing a wallet, please see Clerk Daly. Raise your hand. Very important announcement. In accordance with section 286.011 of our statutes, the opportunity of heard before the board on any proposition is subject to the following. The amount of time an individual has to address the board on a proposition is limited to 3 minutes. Where a large number of individuals wish to be heard on a proposition, the board may limit the comments to one representative of one such group or fraction for the proposition rather than from all members of the board. So what that means is that if you're all here representing one group, and let me ask you this, how many are here from the Historical Society? Raise your hands.
Yes, and you're only going to give 3 minutes to the entire Historical Society?
Yes, ma'am. Now, yes.
I don't think that's taking.
I'm sorry, please sit down. I'm going to go through this portion of it. So if your point has already been made, there's no need to come back up and say it over and over again. You can come forward and say, I agree with John and his position on this. And that's good, okay? We're going to keep it at 3 minutes. I've got a timer. I'm going to stop you when your 3 minutes is up, okay? So with that, if you will come forward and use the microphone, state your name, and you may leave your position.
don't take this on that.
I'm not.
I'm gonna put it on the Thank you. I appreciate it, David. My name is Michelle Roberts. I won't go into my history here, but I can tell you that my family has been here since the settlement of Sebring, and I've been here all my life. I have a couple of issues that I think are very important that I have not heard addressed from anybody, and I think this is as much towards the city as anything, is that first of all, I know that safety concerns are a big thing down here at night. And I understand those very desperately because I was a deputy sheriff here for many years. But I also want to know how the city or the CRA plans to ensure that there will be more safety once all these wonderful things take place. And how do you ensure, are you gonna have fencing? Are you gonna have patrols, more patrols than there are now? Are you gonna have a locked gate? You know, I think that there's a problem, that there will be a considerably more problem with safety down here after that, all the renovations take place. Secondly, to make it as short as I can, is that maintenance. I have been a facilities director for many years myself, and I know that all this boardwalk and all these improvements are a considerable amount of maintenance. And I know that maintenance down here has been lacking in the past. And how does the city intend to step up maintenance for all the expanded facilities so that the place continues to look wonderful, wonderful, wonderful? Because if it goes downhill, it will be a significant problem. And lastly, I'd like to say that in sociological trends, many of the affluent kids and people in our societies have gone to their backyards for entertainment, into their swimming pools. If you look at a lot of the lakes around here right now, the only people who go to the lakes are the people who live on the lakes with the boats, and they are the affluent. And then at some of the very small beaches, the people who stay there and who have fun down there are the disadvantaged folks of our community. Now, for that very reason, you are addressing your state mandate in doing things for the disadvantaged people. But I don't think that's exactly what you're envisioning here. So I would like you to consider that the affluent people in these communities don't play in the lakes, except behind their backyards. So for that, I will stop because I don't want my buzzer to ring.
Thank you.
And that's all.
And just as a point of information for everyone, we're going to take your comments and the concerns you're bringing forward and work with Kinley Horn to address them and not necessarily answer your question directly tonight. Okay, but you are being heard. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Stan Rayleigh. I'm a resident of Sebring. First, I want to thank Hannah and her colleague for digging a little bit deeper into the demographics on the social media campaign that you did. I said I'd like to thank Hannah and her colleague for digging into the social media demographics that she presented earlier tonight. Secondly, we got to look at some of the practical things associated with this. Michelle brought up maintenance. I'm going to bring up traffic. Have any studies been done on how this will affect the traffic flow in this area? And what type of traffic control devices are you planning on installing? I've seen one plan, and it may be old, it may be outdated, it may, I'm not sure where it even came from. It was presented to me that shows a stop sign down at the intersection of Park and Lakeview Drive. I don't understand that. Lakeview Drive is a free-flowing street. If you put a stop sign down there at Park Street, you're going to have traffic backed up for blocks as people come to a three-way or an all-way stop. The other part is parking. Again, Lakeview has been a free-flowing street for years, ever since I can remember. And I've been here long enough that I know that that building up there is the Tropical State Bank building. It's not the Barnett Bank. State Bank building. So, and you're gonna have not only folks our age, but you're gonna have young kids whose parents are gonna park in that parking lot and are gonna have to cross 2 lanes of traffic going one direction to get to this facility. And finally, there's the cost. All of these plans are great, but it's gonna cost a boatload of money to buy and rehabilitate the old Tropical State Bank building. And I guess my time's up.
Got 45 seconds.
40, wow. So quality of life, traffic is terribly important. If you're planning on this bringing more people to downtown, and I said this last night at the CRA meeting, if you're planning on this bringing more people downtown, then there's going to be more traffic downtown. And how are they going to get here? And how's it going to be controlled? And how is it going to affect the people that live in this area? People aren't going to come to this park by boat. Some will, but the vast majority of people will come in vehicles, pickup trucks, cars, motorcycles, you name it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Richard Vosberg. My family moved here in 1967 when I was 14 years old. So I'm Sebring High School class of 1971. As class salutatorian, I gave the opening speech, which some of you remember. This isn't a speech, it's actually a plea to the professional developers, to the CRA. Please keep your mind open. You heard I'll take some of the 2 and some of 1. Let's get to option 8 because I'm so enthusiastic about what this can be. But please listen. These are people who really care and who want something to happen here. And there is a lot of space here. So I would go to, my issues are, number 1, keep both historic houses. Let's have Number 2, parking. We gotta be able to park down here and go and turn around and drop people off. Okay, so parking. Number 3, you heard it, maintenance and security and safety. You know what Veterans Beach turned into for 20 years? Let's not do that. That's not good. And you know, and so, and fourth, this center. We heard the Barnett Bank for the first time, so we need this center or something like this. But please keep the mind open for option 8, because you know, and thank you for starting the conversation.
Thank you.
My name is Krista Jones. I'm 30 years old. I've lived here my whole life, graduated from here. Not too long ago, I was a teenager trying to jump off the pier, but you couldn't jump off of it, so you got to sneak over the railing and hope to God an adult doesn't come out and scream at you. We definitely need to update this area. You know, I have a lot of friends, you know, my age that have kids, and we've all grown up around here, and we're like, oh, there's nothing to do. What are we gonna do? We're bored, let's go do something, so we go out of town. We don't wanna go out of town, that costs money, that costs gas. We wanna hurry up and get to home when the kids are screaming their heads off. And so I like the idea of updating the swimming area and the beach area out there. I would even go as far as adding some showers, like outside showers like they have at the beach, because I don't like putting my kid in my brand new car when she's all sandy and then I gotta vacuum it. I like the splash pad idea. I would even go as far as adding one of those buckets that fill up with water and they dump when they get full. That's a lot of fun. Adding a bigger playground. You know, the playground out there, it's not big enough. I come out here, I use this area. I don't think I'm disadvantaged, but and the pier, make it accessible where teenagers can jump off of it and swim up you know, the swimming area, the lower area that you guys designed, that's awesome. My parents just had a pool built. And when they were designing the pool, the architect, engineer, the guy that was building it, he said, adults want to sit, kids want to swim. So I would like to have a sitting area, maybe out in the water. You know, that would be pretty neat. A boating dock, I think it's a good idea. Maybe not close to the beach, definitely not, because people don't slow down when they're coming in. But a lot of us, we take our boats out to Lake June. They have a sand beach over there, a sandbar, and we all park our boats over there and, you know, have a couple beers. We do. Maybe put a trash can out here where we can find something to do with our beer cans. We don't get drunk and wild out there. That doesn't really go on, but we want to listen to music and get out of our boats and just sit and relax and talk and fellowship. So, and as far as the historic buildings, keep them, you know. I think they need some updating. I'm going to be honest, they look a little shabby. I'm not crazy about the purple.
We reached your time, sorry.
And I'd just like to go ahead and say maybe the blue building, turn that into a snack area or a restaurant, because all these restaurants, they close too early.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tom Stake and I am the Vice President. Sorry, any better? Yes, my name is Tom Stake and I am the Vice President of Highlands Lakeside Theater. And I want to thank everybody for the work that you've put into this. It is very amazing to see these different plans. The possible one that is up on the screen right now is the only one that is feasible for us. Without a dedicated drive to the theater, we're out of business. And I want to also add to that, we require large trucks for deliveries of lumber and supplies into our stage door there. So when you're planning that, that would be very helpful. We are very concerned about having accessible parking for our theater. The bulk of our patrons are senior citizens, and walking a quarter mile even is going to be out of the question for them. And I want to sort of push back a little bit about the suggestion that was made that we could possibly use golf carts or some form. We are a volunteer theater. Every actor, every usher, every bartender, we're volunteers. And the idea that we would pay people now to drive people back and forth is concerning. It is also concerning because that creates an added liability for us, and we're paying pretty high insurance rates as it is. So that would be a pretty big concern for us. Another concern is the possible counter programming. I like that there are very good ideas on ways that this expanded park could be used for varying events. Our concern would be having some sort of a formal scheduling to not compete with us. One of the things that we face annually, as much as it does contribute to the community, but the triathlon is a burden on the theater. It is held on a weekend that we have held shows since at least 1985. We have had shows on that weekend, but we have added events that takes away all of our parking for 3 days. And it is a very big struggle for us. So that would be another concern that we would have. We like the idea of bringing more people to that area. We like the idea of other events, but there needs to be some sort of a coordination so we're not competing against each other. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Pete Pollard, and I took notes. I'd like to commend the CRA. I told you at a meeting not too long ago that I was really pleased that you were taking this up again, being the one who put the 1991 plan together, and I'm not responsible for the boardwalk. Our staff did not recommend that. But I do have some questions. Many of them have already been answered. I kind of like the idea of the possibility of acquiring the bank building and turning that into a cultural center. The concern there would be the cost to the organizations involved, and whether or not they can actually afford to make that transition. It would be important, I think, for the CRA to provide as much assistance as possible if that's the direction you go in, because the Historical Society and the Art League have been backbones of this community pretty much forever. Drainage. I look at the plan. This retention pond back here wasn't planned. City wanted to put in a beach, so we planned on putting in a beach, and then we found out that environmental requirements required that huge swimming pool out there that has to be cleaned out periodically at great expense. Your retention pond seems to be smaller. I'm assuming that the planners didn't really talk to engineers about it, or did you?
Yes, we did. We talked about it.
Okay. Where's the water that comes down Center Avenue, flows right down past the building here and into that retention pond going to go? Because if you don't have a way for it to go someplace, it's going to flood all those buildings as it did for many years. There is an underground system out here that feeds through that roundabout and then down into the slough. You're talking about moving retention all the way to the other side of the complex, and that would be a concern. Lighting. We've got quite a bit of lighting down here in the parking areas. It's not being maintained well because most of the bulbs seem to be burned out all the time. The poles need to be painted. Maintenance comes into that. That's already been mentioned. But if you're going to do this and you want people to come down here and enjoy it, at night, it needs to be incredibly well lit. Boat slips. Tom? The 91 plan actually had some slips coming out from the seawall back here. And then they curved and the fishing pier was on the back side, so it would block boats from going into the beach. That might be something to consider to resolve that problem. Car shows, food truck, events, wonderful things. They attract people. Where are you going to put them? Because I don't see any parking. Parking is going to be the biggest problem you have with this. You don't have adequate parking plugged in, barely enough parking for the library. People coming into the theater, half of that parking lot, the back half of that parking lot at the top of the picture there, actually belongs to the Edgewater Arms. Currently, there are 36 parking spaces in that lot. Those 36 parking places are full. When the theater has an event down here, for example, you've got 220 seats in there. And if on the average, 2 people arrive in a car, that's 110 cars. So you're going to get anywhere from 80 to 110 cars coming in to see a show. In the last couple of events here, they've been completely sold out. And it was a real problem over the weekend. So parking is going to be your major issue.
We're at 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I live down the street in Sebring. I'm an old English motor company, but I'm speaking for myself. I wore my 50-year-old Blazer to make a point that when something gets old or out of style, you don't throw it away, you just get a good tailor. And I think that could be applied to one comment on the wonderful pictures that show things like the palm groves. Where are the oak trees? The oak trees are part of the heritage of this town. Trees and replace them with palm trees or with the trees that like olive that they use in Fort Lauderdale and grow very quickly. Secondly, I have a comment that I think could have been done without all of this. The beach, the left side beach, it would seem to me that if they brought 20 truckloads of sand in on the left side beach, the city owns trucks, the city owns graders, and the whole community is made of white sand, why not just add 20 truckloads of sand? And I think you'd have a beach, what do you have to spend any money on? Now, I've lived in many historical communities. I was actually born in a hospital that was built in 1853. I lived in an 1850s house in Westfield, New York. Nothing is torn down there. Everything is restored. My family home is now a bed and breakfast. I moved to Beacon Hill, Boston after I graduated from Colgate. I was actually in Newport and Savannah, Georgia in the 70s at the time when their historic preservation was beginning. So I saw that. They all looked worse than Sebring did 10 years ago. Look at them now. I think that the whole historical issue is really being overlooked. And I want to say, I then moved to Fort Lauderdale. I saw developers in Fort Lauderdale. I saw history bulldozed, everything was bulldozed. As density increased, the quality of life decreased. Now, my question is, why did the CRA hire this consulting firm that has no interest in history? Yes, the waterfront is our great asset, but the equally great asset is the history and heritage. Why is history and heritage being pushed to the back of the bus and the developer sitting up front? Do we ask the CRA or who do we ask? I don't know. So, in my opinion, what should have been done, and it wasn't done, and should be done, I believe that a second consulting firm should be hired by the CRA. I think that you should go ahead and put 20 truckloads of sand in, but other than that, I don't think anything should be done until a second consulting firm is hired that is either approved by or chosen by the Sebring Historical Society. Because guys, Fort Lauderdale and other cities that bulldoze their history, and they weren't hired by a historical society there. So that's my opinion, and it's up to the rest of you to follow up on that.
It is so good to be here, and my name is Reverend George Miller. I've had the honor to serve Emmanuel United Church of Christ for the past 11 years. Absolutely love Sebring, and when I bought my first home, I bought it off of Matlow Avenue. Cute little cozy cottage that belonged to Mary Lanier with a beautiful oak tree. And I love the fact of knowing this tree is so old enough that George Sebring's wife probably saw it herself when she named the Indian streets. I have some things I'd like to share. First, thank you so much for bringing in the Facebook community, because it's my opinion for the 55 or 60 and younger community, social media is our town hall. So even though we don't see the younger faces here, they've already done their part, especially post-COVID, expressing how they feel. And I hope everyone realizes that a Facebook text is just as important as someone being on a microphone. The second thing I like to share is what I think is a social justice issue. We have an amazing community of people who live here, but we have a vast community of people who make that possible because they're working in the restaurants, and they're working at Publix, and they're working at the movie theater, and they're working at the Palms, and they're taking care of our parents and our parishioners and our loved ones. And those people who are working in those facilities have children. Their children deserve, in my opinion, what you are proposing. I believe the people who are serving us, who are taking care of us, who are in the hospital, who are making sure you recover when you're sick, their children deserve to come to a place where they can play without having to go to Box Tower, without spending a lot of money. Also, from my generation, we don't like to buy things. Buying things is over and done with. Thrift stores are dead. Stop them. We care about experiences, and for the 60 and under community, you can never have too many restaurants. Look at Paducah, Kentucky, and how they built back their city by bringing in restaurants and art. Third thing I like to say, and if I don't have enough time, I understand this. I love historical buildings when they're maintained. When they are falling apart, it makes the city look shabby and sad, and it makes the younger people say, who cares about these buildings if no one's taking care of them? If the buildings are full, that's one thing, but to see empty buildings does nothing. I think about my experience with my house. Big, beautiful mimosa bush, 8 feet tall. My neighbor came along and chopped it down. I thought if I left it alone, it was gonna grow back. It's never grown back. What I discovered is I had to take out the prune and the shovel. I had to dig out the parts that were permanently dead, prune it the heck back, and then fertilize it and water it. Now it's growing and looking beautiful. What I hear you all doing is that you are faithfully pruning and watering and fertilizing, not just so people here can enjoy it, but those who are going to be alive 30 to 50 to 60 to 80 years will be able to enjoy it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much.
My name is Bill Clay, and my wife and I live right south of the pier in Concept 1. So we are the neighbors right to the south of the park. We support Concept 2. We support and we thank CRA, the city council, and we thank the consultants. I think everybody is, and the community, everybody is really trying to make something happen here that we think is positive. My only negative comment is that pier in Concept 1 cannot be in that location. For the reasons that Mr. Detman and a number of other people have talked about, it's not safe to the swimmers. It takes away from the beach. And also, there's a lot of wildlife south of that point in Concept 1. Concept 2 is better, it's more harmonious, it's got more of a historical feel, as other people have said. There is a lot of wildlife along the shoreline in front of our neighbors, our house and other neighbors to the south. There's turtles, there's fish, there's a whole array of wildlife and bird life. That's going to be interrupted if the pier were be in Concept 1's position. So I advocate, if you want to go for a blend of the two, I can see that. But definitely a pier at that location is not safe. The other aspects of Concept 2, in my opinion, my wife's opinion, and my neighbors to the south of me, is that Concept 2 has more that is harmonious with this particular area. But I want to thank everybody, because this is a great process. I think everybody's trying to do the right thing. Thank you.
Yeah, hello, my name is Mike Schmidt. My first concern is about the funding for all these projects. So we have a downtown revitalization program going on. There's a $5 million loan, I understand. And then this project is going to cost some money for sure. I would like to see it broken down where all this money is supposed to come from. You told me yesterday it's going to come from a loan, but ultimately somebody's going to be on the hook for that loan, right? And my suspicion is the taxpayer is probably going to be on the hook for that loan. So it would be nice, once we have a final plan, to find out what the cost of that is, where exactly that money is going to come from, and maybe put that to a referendum the next chance we get. So that being said, another concern is we heard about history and how important it is to preserve history. And then we want to tear down these houses and hack up these trees that have been here for like probably 70, 80 years. These trees are very nice. They took a long time to grow. They provide a lot of shade. If you stand out in Florida in the summer sun for 10 minutes, you kind of know how important shade is. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of people coming here if there's no shade. You know how brutal it gets here in the summer, and these trees are very nice. They make it very pleasant to hang out here. And so I would like to see the trees and the two historic buildings preserved. And the third one is the theater and the Barnett Bank. They're not the prettiest buildings to look at. And I've been in other cities, you might notice an accent, so I've been in a lot of Eastern European countries. And what they did there is they preserved the facade of a building or juiced it up and built a completely new building behind it. And so I think for relatively little money, you can probably beautify these buildings, put some lights, put some stucco out there, put some tiles out there. And I don't know if you can see that, but I'm holding up some pictures here. Those are theaters around Florida and other places. There's some daylight, there's some neon light outside. I can leave that with you. You can pass that around later. There's some particularly pretty buildings here. I don't know if you can all see that. And I think for a relatively small amount of money, we can turn into the Barnett building and maybe even a theater and some really pretty buildings, because people like that. I don't know if you've ever been to like town nearby Arcadia. Arcadia has a lot of pretty buildings downtown. It's kind of fun to walk around and look at these pretty buildings. You walk around here, you look at the Barnett building, it's like architectural atrocity, really. I mean, it serves its purpose. I'm not saying tearing it down, but maybe with a little bit of funding, we can turn it into something nice that people enjoy looking at. Anyway, that's about all I have to say, and I'll turn it over.
My name is Jeff Stanley. I've lived in Highlands County now for over 20 years. I spend my spring, summer, and fall for the last 42 years in Western North Carolina as an outfitter. I'm very excited to see what's happening here, and I hope to be part of what's going to be going on. With that being said, I'd like to be in that outfitter building you've been talking about. But I have a question for you. Everything I hear is human powered. Are you going to have anything that's going to allow gas power, jet skis, PWCs, pontoon boats, boat tours, fishing tours?
You want me to answer?
You want me to answer that now?
No.
Okay. Please take that into account. Just simply, canoeing, kayaking, tubing, stand-up paddleboarding is I'm very good with that. Do that too, but I think that we're all about access for the people that cannot afford to go out on a boat, maybe ride behind a banana float or on an inner tube or something like that. And we want to be the people that are going to be able to offer that for everyone, as well as new tourists who come to vacation to our area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joanne Ritter. I'm a Florida girl. I've lived everywhere from the Keys on up through DeLand. I've been coming here for 40 years because over the years, all my family moved here. So we finally bought a place. We moved here. I got here just before the triathlon that night. 6 o'clock in the morning, I got blasted out of bed. I said, well, okay, people gotta live, don't be an old fogey. By the way, I'm gonna be 75 in October. I'm an old fogey. Now, let me ask you one question, and I'd like to see a show of hands. I love the concept. I think the execution's a little incorrect. How many of you would like this next door to your house? Raise your hands. You'd be more than willing. Okay? Now, see all the beautiful plans, and then right up here in the corner, it says apartments. That's where I live. I live right over there. The problem being, that's an over 55 community. And they're not like old fogies, they don't want any kids or any noise. But you've got the pier so far over, it's gonna eclipse our property. Not only that, people on the pier, I'm sure they're gonna be there day and night, because I used to fish at 1, 2 in the morning. They throw stuff in the water. Every day when I get up to walk my dog, I clean up around here, and we don't really have anybody coming here, okay? There was more during the triathlon, and there was more on Monday. But the point is, you haven't given any consideration to the noise factor or the traffic factor or the wildlife. There's turtles there. There are fish. There are 2 or 3 kinds of ducks, and there are rabbits. They gotta go somewhere. And you know, if they go in somebody's yard, that isn't gonna be a good thing. So what I'm saying is, good idea, I'd love to support it, but you're gonna have to give a little more consideration to the neighbors. By the way, in the process of moving here, 4 times I've pulled up and somebody that doesn't live there took my deeded parking spot. And my husband can hardly walk. Okay, so these are the kind of things that we really need to think about the execution.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Howie Cook, and I'm about a 22-year resident of the Sebring area. Come here after retirement, and to enjoy my retirement, I volunteer. 18 years with the Sebring International Raceway in the SEREC, 8 years with the Sebring Sport Aviation Expo, and you know where I spent so much of my time? Right here with you at the Civic Center. And if you open those windows, you'll find that this area of Sebring has so many people that enjoy it. Families come here, they walk, they picnic. I found myself wanting to go outside too many times when there was a meeting going on here. Also here, we've had years and years with the Orchid Society. A smaller group, but still, this is home here, the Civic Center. It's the foundation of the things that our forefathers that started this town built. Speaking of forefathers, if you look up there at the corner where the parking lot is, that's the original George Sebring home. And he kind of built this town on a Christian relationship of being with family and building a town with churches all around it. Churches of any denomination. But at any rate, next to George Sebring, some people refer it to as the Weagle House. This is the Charles Weagle House, an evangelist that came to Sebring because it was built on a Christian city that enjoyed that family relationship. So in the 70s, that particular house was donated to the city for a library. And you see that Sebring library. However, the home was destroyed. So now there's 2 homes left up there, very historical, almost 100 years old. Charles Weagle Place, which the Sebring Historical Society has resurrected into the Weagle House Museum. And there's all kinds of pictures and memorabilia. There's history of Sebring now on display. If you're interested in coming to the Weagle House Museum, every Wednesday from 8 until 10, many times it goes till 12, we have free coffee and donuts. You can take a tour, you can see what the people around Sebring, including one of the gentlemen that just spoke here a few minutes ago, has become a second nature to take a break. The last home is known as the Colvetti House. This is General George Higgins that built the building on the circle. that building on the circle that started the Salvation Army here in Sebring. Now, talk about history and
Sir,
religious
we've reached
history.
the 3 minutes.
This is the place. So I'd like to see those two buildings, the final two buildings that are still around, resurrected and retained. Other than that, thank everyone.
Good evening, my name is Tom Mendel. My wife was born here. Since we've been married, we've been in and out of Sebring for 50 years. The thing that I see that's lacking, and I work for large pharmaceutical companies with strategic planning. And what's lacking is you have a strategic plan, but you're missing some important elements of it. And I know it's a process, but if you don't understand the financials, both capital construction as well as maintenance costs, you can't make intelligent decisions about a plan. So you've got to have the financials. And I know that you can come up with some ballpark estimates for this facilities that you're planning on. And then there should be maybe a phasing part of this where you could build part of it on a phased process. And maybe you can't afford the whole thing and you only do part of it like Mr. Carlisle had suggested. So I think you've got a lot of work to do from a strategic planning perspective, understanding the cost of construction, understanding the cost of maintenance, and what the phasing might be over time. Because I know you're not going to build this all at once.
Thank you.
Hello, just to introduce myself, my name is Miguel Arcio. I'm here on behalf of the younger generation in Highlands County. Just a suggestion. I was listening to the focus groups and whatnot who all went. Maybe try to get the younger community involved. I would love to help you guys get more people in there into those focus groups. See what they like, see what they would like to do moving forward. Additionally, as I get older, I start to realize I become more conservative when it comes to spending money and debt. So, like I think a lot of people said, the debt, but my generation is going to be the one that's going to have to pay for it. So if somewhere down the line, I think there should be some planning. And if it does work out, if the funds are there, then I can see certain elements of this working out. But just the funding is definitely a big part, because I know somewhere down the line, my generation will probably have to help pay for it or refinance something for it. Secondly, my generation, we love the idea of fixing this area. I know someone suggested earlier opening up the blinds, but when you open up the blinds, all you see is a retention pond. So I definitely agree that we can do some improvements, but the point isn't to just replace it. I don't think I've ever heard a young person say, we're going to improve the entire building by tearing down those two buildings all the way far in the corner. I don't think that's a necessary component. We can definitely improve it here without having to affect the history over there. Great stuff here. Just certain components really do scare me. I don't think we should be risking our history just, to make something all the way down here work. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Garrett Lee. I teach engineering stuff up at the college in Avon Park, although for legal reasons I should say I'm not licensed to practice in the state of Florida. But my main concern on this is looking at the possible new cultural center. One thing that concerns me is I know when there was a look at possibly moving the library from its current location over to the Horseshoe Bank at Pine Street and Ridgewood, that they were talking about putting all the books up there, and nobody actually did the structural calculations on can it actually hold several tons worth of books there. So one thing that concerns me is if we end up having a Civic Center like this on the second story, there's two narrow staircases and one creaky old elevator, and there've got to be over 150 people that showed up here. A lot of them are elderly. If there was a fire downstairs, could everybody get out in time? And so what I would like to request is that a structural engineer be hired to go ahead and take a look and make sure that it's actually feasible to go ahead and convert what was once designed as a few offices upstairs to an entire civic center, and do that safely and properly. And also any other building, if it turns out that is not practical, if you decided to look at the Horseshoe Bank building or Kenilworth or Santa Rosa or whatever other facility, that you also have a structural engineer go ahead and take a look at that and make sure that, and get that early in the process so that we don't make ginormous plans and then the construction goes in there and says, wait, no, it won't work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Joshua Klatt. I'm a Sebring resident. I've lived here my whole life. And I just want to visit with you all for a few brief minutes about the principles of our American democracy. One of the principles is that everybody gets a chance to be heard and every vote gets a chance to be counted. Some of the process with this has not enabled that, and it's important that we make sure that we redress that. We make sure that we hear from everyone. There are significant groups in our community who are not here tonight. Most of, as has been said by the Reverend Mueller earlier, most of the young people in the community come from underprivileged families. And we need to be careful that what we envision for this lake and this area and this improved waterfront does not make them feel uncomfortable and gentrified. But another important principle of our American democratic system is this idea of compromise and transparency. We all are upfront and honest with one another, and while we disagree, we work through those disagreements and try to find solutions that everyone is happy with or can live with. And in that regard, I really want to commend Alice Strokel. While there are people here tonight that have said, I don't like either plan, Alice actually took the effort to look at the plans that were presented in the newspaper and find a way to synthesize them with the desires of the Art League and the Historical Society that the two buildings be preserved, and then also this one. And so she has drawn up one possible concept that preserves all of the buildings. Finally, the important thing to people who care about history is that our historic buildings be preserved. These designs that have been presented both have shops and restaurants in the place of those buildings. It is perfectly feasible to have shops and restaurants in those buildings. The important thing is that they be preserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a lot of stuff here, sorry. My name is Andy Hammett. I've lived here since 1998, 14 years at Lake Placid High School as an art teacher there. Know this area well, love this place. Very concerned right now, though. A lot of change and a lot of stuff going on. And I just started off right off the bat. I don't know what word it'll be in. It's just strange how things are happening all of a sudden, just really super fast. Everything's happening at breakneck speed. And it's strange because that same comment that I'm feeling was mentioned in, sorry, this is a mess, was listed in, I'll go over here, was listed in, I'll read this out, that has to do with the access, Americans with Disabilities access. And we know what that means. There's been a lot of stuff going on since COVID. People getting out of jail. No, anything that has, this has no date on people that actually do have disabilities, but that term is broad. And I'm really feeling like eventually we're going to be in a situation where freedom is part of independence on government to make our decisions and how everything lays out. In 2019, October 10th, I kept this newspaper, I have stats, by the way. And zoning commission was getting together, talking at that time about housing for migrants that would be handling the area in Lake Placid where they have the solar panels, the huge facility out there. It's a wonderful idea. I don't like that concept of having illegals in here. We can't take care of ourselves. We don't need that going on, and I have a problem with trafficking. So adding to that, I want to just go ahead and move into about the zoning. We now have, just the other day, breakneck speed, boom, 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 it's happening really fast. We have the annexation area of 35 acres, 38 acres up near East Winthrop and Marshall Avenue in Avon Park, leading up to that area, which is very close to the new core steel building. New core, everything just seems to be very prophetic how everything is tied together. I'm really concerned. Okay.
Thank you.
And what's that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For the record, my name is Dan Andrews. For the past 15 to 20 years, our community has really attempted to develop an arts and culture and an artist village right here up the hill. While these concepts came with great passion and enthusiasm, it is unfortunate that they were never brought to full fruition. But now we are presented with an awesome opportunity to reshape this area into an exciting and vibrant waterfront. This waterfront project isn't the last step, but rather the first step in a complete redevelopment of downtown Sebring. I come to you with my thoughts, having lived here my entire life. My wife and I, we own a 100-year-old home that we saved from demolition. This home was built by Captain Pringle, a sea captain in the Great Lakes, and later lived in by Judge Kelly for 20 years. We moved this hill, as I said, we moved the house across the road to save it. In addition to that, I own Legacy Bicycles downtown, and my partner and I bought and renovated an 80-year-old building that was the original Pontiac dealership in town. So I have a flavor for history, and I want to see history be an important part of what we do. In addition to Legacy Bicycles, my wife and I own and operate Heartland Triathlon, and we also partner with the Sebring Multi-Sport Festival. Both events are large triathlons and attract between 1,000 to 3,000 people to our community twice a year. So when looking at the waterfront project, suffice to say I have a captive interest. I've reviewed the two waterfront concepts in depth and would like to share my thoughts related to both of these concepts. Concept one, while very appealing aesthetically, I feel the functionality of this concept does not necessarily fit some of the future desires and use for this property. When I say future desires, I'm not just talking about the triathlon, I'm also speaking about other events and activities, especially from the angle of being able to view activities taking place on the water. I love the integration of design cues from the circle and the terracing, but did not care for the boat docks and the pier being on two separate sides of the property. The terracing is very cool, but again, I think this design is appealing to the eye, but not necessarily functional. Concept two is a lot more in line with what I envision for our community's waterfront. I like the aspect of large event lawn, which will serve greatly, not just for the Heartland Triathlon and Sebring Multi-Sport Festival, but also for concerts, activities, spectator viewing, and waterside activities. But waterside activities, no slides are in this proposal. Waterside activities in conjunction with fishing piers and boat docks. Considerations that I think should be addressed on the concept. Concept two, we just need to make sure if we do an event lawn that lawn has substantial underground base to cover vehicles moving in and out. We need to make sure we're able to get vehicles in and out to unload tents and things of that nature. I've studied and been to various waterfront projects in Haines City, Claremont, St. Pete, Lakeland, and Palatka, and talked to those communities about their development and how those waterfront parks stimulated and really spawned their community's redevelopment. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to commend the CRA for tackling this project. It hasn't been easy, especially with some of the misinformation that's been dealt with on social media. And I'd also like to finish with one quote. Just because something is old does not necessarily make it valuable and historical. Sometimes it's just old.
Here to say what he said. Maybe I got up here to say happy birthday to Administrator Scott Natelick. My name is John Carlson. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Sebring. I grew up on the Indian Streets, currently live about a half a mile from here, and like Councilman Carlisle, I miss being able to jump my bike off the end of the pier, although Dan would be mad at me if I did it today. From a historical standpoint, the city's been working, I think Dan mentioned this, we've been working, or the city has been working with the Art League for at least the 20 plus years that I've been involved when they took over these 3 buildings. Milestones were set, agreements were reached, milestones weren't met, agreements weren't reached. We've done a lot from a historical standpoint to try and save this, and at this point, this plan gives us an opportunity to remake all of downtown Sebring. I own multiple buildings in downtown Sebring, I operate my business there, I'm here all the time. Also, from a historical standpoint, I have to say, we keep talking about these oak trees out here. From an oak tree standpoint, those trees are brand spanking new. They were put there when that park was redone 20 years ago. So they're not 100-year-old oak trees. That one up there is a 100-year-old oak tree. Those are not. And finally, like I said, I live about a half a mile from here, and we come down here all the time on foot, on bicycles, on scooters now. We come by lake on our paddle boards and our kayaks, canoes, and with our boat. We do that 2 or 3 times a week at least. This park is underutilized. Sometimes on the weekend, there's a lot of people here, but on a regular basis, there's not that much going on down here. And I'm excited to see something happen that'll bring more people and open up the waterfront. And finally, we've even pulled our regular boat down here and parked it and walked up to some of the restaurants in downtown Sebring to eat, and just taking the chance of leaving our boat out there parked on the beach in order to do that and patronize the businesses that are in downtown Sebring. I know a lot of people are going to like this, but if I had my way, everything from the Highlands Little Theater all the way across here, level it all, rebuild it, reshape it, reimagine it, make this downtown something that people are proud of and people want to come to. Parking is plentiful all over this area. There are all kinds of parking lots up there. The last thing we need on our lakefront is 100 parking spaces. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Susie Tucker, and I am my great-grandfather was George E. Sebring. My maiden name was Susie Sebring. So I'm here to kind of talk about history. I have traveled to Sebring, Ohio 2 times. I've been to their historical society. I have gone to the town. I wanted to know more history from my great-grandfather. I went to a home, let me back up a little bit. George E. Sebring started a pottery company in Sebring, Ohio before he found this town. So I wanted to know more about the pottery company, and I actually went to a person's home, visited with her, collected many pieces of pottery that she gave to me. I went back another time and went to their historical society. I've gone through Sebring, Ohio. And honestly, it's sad to say, the town has not grown. I've talked to people there, young people there. It has not grown. It's still the same each time I went. So I would like to see something move forward with this, that we could have people come to our lake. If sitting here, you can see it hasn't been used that much. I think my father was Billy Sebring. Many stories have been told about the pier. I have gone on the pier. Do I come now? No, I don't feel it is safe. So I really enjoy hearing history. I enjoy hearing stories and love it, but I would like to see something different here. I am a teacher. I've been teaching for 31 years here. And this is what kids need. They need a place to go. They have said they like the scooters. Yes, I know they're all over the place and they enjoy it, but they need something. I think young adults I think I'm still that, maybe. I think we need things to do. I think the splash pad would be awesome for younger kids. I understand about the boats coming up where the kids in the swimming, maybe, you know, I think that's a concern. I really would like to see the theater stay. And I feel like that's the only thing that really is being utilized here. I think the Civic Center, a long time ago, way before my time, was the Sebring Mansion. I have pictures, I have a lot of history in my home. I have a whole section of pottery and pictures and things from the past. The home was torn down for this. And to me, in this, my opinion, this Civic Center is not history to me. It was a building built just so we could have meetings. It's not historical. That's just my feelings, but it's not historical. Yes, those homes may be old, historical, and you know, if they're saved and we do something with them, if we operate the, I'm not gonna say it right, probably the outfitters out of it, something like that to utilize it, but to make this area grow was the vision of what George E. Sebring wanted. He came to this town for, you know, he loved the lake. That's why he was the founder and built this, because he already had Sebring, Ohio, and his vision was bringing it from the circle so you could see the lake. And right now, you can't see the lake with this large building here. And it's not utilized that much. If we have a meeting or something like that, but if you have a water development here of, you know, so many options, I think you have done a remarkable job with these two plans. Now, do I think there needs to be a third? Probably, because we've all said, I like this part, I like this part, so there may be a third or a fourth or, you know, but I think we can all, like we say at school, we can work as a team. Some things may have to go, some things may have to stay, but as a descendant of the Sebring family, and I'm only speaking for me, I'm not speaking of my humongous family, but as a Sebring, you know, member, I would like to see this developed into something that more people would come and visit.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nancy Morrissey. I'm from the Highlands County Historic Preservation Committee. I'm a committee person. The Highlands County Preservation Committee was appointed by the Highlands County Board of County Commissioners. And our job is to promote the educational, cultural, and economic welfare of the public by establishing procedures to preserve the county's history, the resources, and enhancing public participation and involvement in the preservation and protection of such resources, including the building structures, monuments, and resources. According to the City of Sebring's website, the CRA and the City of Sebring Historic Preservation Committee and the owners of the historic district work together to restore the city to its original beauty. That's what we want here. The duty of the Historic Commission is to protect the architectural resource of the city from demolition, neglect, inappropriate renovation, and to aid those who own property within the district desiring to rehabilitate or modify the exterior of the buildings. The Historic Commissions, both Sebring and the county, propose to promote the educational, cultural, and economic welfare of the public by setting standards for changes in the historic district. The Waterfront is a historic district. The commissions will assist with the local historic property designations and national registrations, listing information on federal investment, tax credits, and financial incentives, even Florida grants through historic preservation. And I understand that this is a new building. The library itself was built in the 70s. I know this is a community center. I know there's a lot of issues. I know that a lot of grants and money was spent on the drainage system, the parking, the buildings. According to the tax assessments, these buildings in this area are worth over $3 million, including the land. So this is how the city is assessing these buildings. It is the city who is maintaining these buildings. If anything is falling apart, it is the city's responsibility. The CRA is a district that is supposed to look into these, oversee development. If things are going wrong, they should step in and correct it. They should not eliminate buildings, they should fix them. I have 4 children. I've been here for 10 years. They're now young adults. They utilize the playgrounds here, the pavilions. We had a boat. We lived on both sides of Lakeview. Several were just down. We utilized the library, the museum. We were right across from the boat ramp. We know what the boats are with the swimming area. There are a lot of issues. We are involved with endangered species. You have the sand cranes, you have the owls, you have the eagles, you have the osprey. You need to consider environmental issues. You have a lot of drainage issues here. We really need that retention pond. If you eliminate that, there's going to be flooding. There's flooding all the buildings. During hurricanes, I have friends who lived and died here from birth to death. They had several activities out here. They also note that in times of drought, you don't have access, you have tons of beach. So any type of boat activities, go nullified. And also during hurricanes and stuff, you have waves coming over the pier. So if you have lower level of building construction, that's going to be demolished. And also taking into consideration the apartments, we had large parties and everything, and we know how noisy it gets on both sides of the lake. So because,
That's time.
yes, thank you.
Greetings, my name is Shane Mitchell, and I am the Worship and Creative Arts Pastor at First Baptist. And I'm not from Sebring. I've been here 1 year. We moved here in June, so we love it. We've not been here very long, but the reason I wanted to come tonight is just to encourage you what this looks like on the other side, because I was a resident of Chattanooga, Tennessee for 11.5 years, and we lived there long enough to watch the Waterfront District in Chattanooga be totally changed. It was an unsafe place across from Coolidge Park, which we have a beautiful splash pad along with the carousels and things for kids to do. It was the hub of life for our city. And it has been replicated numerous times in the city of Ottawa, Tennessee, and other areas around Chattanooga. It's a beautiful place to live, but the waterfront across from that was a very dangerous place. It was, in all honesty, the red light district. You did not go there after 5 p.m. at all. A lot of drug activity, things like that. We were able to see that area not only historically saved, because a lot of those buildings that existed still do to this day, they've been repurposed. But we saw beautiful waterfront created with lawn space and a tiered area for music. That is where nightfall and everything takes place. But all of those areas around there became a place where we did life together. And I'm 49 years old. I brought with me a 25-year-old daughter who's not married. And yeah. Well, this is the easiest place for her to find a man, you know what I mean? Like, unless she's looking for somebody 70, it's just kind of hard to do. So she needs a place, and she desires a place where she and her friends can come. They can hang out. They can do life together. And coming from Chattanooga, just to be honest, with the first time I drove into this beautiful city on that circle, I thought, what potential this place has. But then I found out it pretty much, the carpet gets rolled up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's nothing that takes place. And so to see something like this, and to be able to preserve history, and at the same time, thank you guys for all the work you do. I cannot believe that you guys are volunteers and do this. I would encourage you this. I'm on social media quite a bit. Just be careful with the way you treat people. Because we can disagree and love one another at the same time. And there's just a way to disagree.
Hello, I'm Jackie Andrews. I've lived in Sebring my entire adult life. I've raised my family here and at times have been very involved in the community and proud to do so. But I must say that I'm appalled by the way the CRA volunteer board members have been maligned in the last few months through social media sites in particular. I, for one, would like to thank you and go on the record commending them for their hard work and diligence in bringing these concepts to the citizens for their comments and for their review. Thank you. I helped raise the money to design and build the Highlands Art League Museum of the Arts. At the time, several old buildings had to be removed. They had to make way for also the little theater building. Plans were drawn up to also include expansion toward the pier. During the ensuing years, the needs for the area changed and resulted in Rotary Park. The Art League also decided to invest in several homes along Lakeview Drive instead of adding to the addition to the museum building, which the plans still exist for. Needs and visions again changed, which brings us to today. Looking to not just today, but into the next 20 plus years, it will be important to encompass a growing and aging society where health and athletic endeavors become even more important. Opportunities for active and self-supporting activities will need to be available for everyone, regardless of economic ability, enhancing Sebring's quality of life. Why Sebring is here, how it has evolved, is also a part of the quality of our life. Treasured artifacts of the community's past should be preserved and put on display as an educational tool to provide history resource and also how our current society became what it is today. That being said, a modern location of preservation and presentation to the public audience in a location easily accessible to all ages and with total ADA requirements should be met. So where does that leave art and culture? Right where it belongs. As an integrated part of our lives, not just museums, but plein air classes in a beautiful park setting, permanent art installations throughout the waterfront, enjoyment of the art and of nature. We have a lot of nature. Let's really enjoy it. Our beautiful natural asset, our Lake Jackson. You couldn't pay people to have that kind of asset in their community. Buildings do not make a village, people do. So let's continue to work on these plans to bring Sebring into the 21st century. With determination and compromise, this can be accomplished.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilor Swain, Administrator Needlich, and louder. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
And members of the CRA. There are 4 houses in Sebring, residences, that have historical significance. You've got the Rex Beach House, you've got the Marjorie Rambeau House, and you've got these 2 houses up here. That's it.
No, that's not.
If those 4, I said this, did I say international significance? Are there any others that are internationally significant? Don't think so, not according to the historical records. At any rate, if we lose those 2, we're down to just 2. I just wanted to bring that out as a point of reference for discussions when you're going forward in these things. It doesn't fit my style because I've restored 14 homes or buildings. The next thing I'd like to talk about is security. It's been a topic that's brought up several times tonight. And if you look at the roads that are being put in here, they don't get the police down to where activity would be. They stop pretty much right back here. So that needs to be considered in any plan you guys are doing. How many police officers are going to get out of their car, up on the street, and walk all the way down here to check their area? They want to drive. Or unless we're going to have security that's here all the time. So that's something that really needs to be considered as to how we get the police involved in the security all the time. The last one is, point is, there are about 3.1 acres outside this door that are along the beach. 3.1 acres.
out of slightly less than 10. That's more than 30%. All of the buildings, not counting the theater, all the rest of the buildings are less than 6.5%. So you've got over 30% out here to go to the water park. You could use 6.5% for the rest of the buildings. And then you can still have a pretty good sized parking lot. And with that, I will pass it on to Alice Propel, who has an alternative plan that she just came up with that I just saw.
It's just a suggestion. I'm not saying that it's the mind. And it's a compromise. And I'm here as a member of the art league. I'm not here, I'm Alice Propel. I own a building downtown, and it's my art studio. And I'm not here to represent the art league. I'm here as a member of the art league, but also as the director that helped save those buildings all those years ago. And I think everything's been said that I was going to say. The questions have been asked, except one.
Closer to the mouth, please.
Except one, and my question is to the CRA. I think the thing that upset me the most is that the Art League wasn't involved before you hired this team to come in and do these plans. The Art League, even maybe we haven't been as successful as some people think it should have been. The money and the time and the energy that's put into those buildings was astronomical. And it's gone on for almost 20 years. And I know that there's some objection to that, but the consideration wasn't there. You did not sit down with them. The people that are going to be the building's going to be destroyed. That building in particular was one of the buildings that we took over because there wasn't enough room here. And we didn't build on because there was an opportunity for 3 buildings that were already here, and we'd be able to save them for the city of Sebring. And the fact that the people that were going to be displaced weren't even in the conversation at all until you had your focus group. And that was an hour before another event like this. I find that unbelievable. And I think it was inconsiderate, and I just don't know what else to say. And you're going to, if you left the museum building, now you have a plan, but you didn't have a plan for them. You had no plan for tearing down that building and not letting them go anywhere. And I think that's really sad. And that's my opinion. This plan is simply how you can combine the two. And you're talking about phasing it in. This would be a great way to phase it. If you want to do the water park out there and the things, I'm getting nervous. Sorry about that. If you want to do all that, do it, but leave the rest of it, leave the rest of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your comments. We will take them down, and they will be part of what we do going forward. With that, I'll turn it back over to Scotty.
Thank you. We thank everybody that's here today. It's good to see the interest from the community coming out and expressing their opinions on how we should move forward. At this time, no further ado, I guess, calls for adjournment.
Do you want to finalize next steps?
Yours is different from mine. I have adjournment. You want to have finalization in your steps?
Yes.
Okay, it's got your name next to it on mine, so.
Okay, I got you. So we're going to be into what is sort of the next step, and does council have anything they want to do, any actions that they want to do, or anything? I guess, Jamie, I'll just ask you, what's kind of our process going forward?
First of all, thank you for all the comments. We've heard a lot of very similar themes, and so that really helps us. Again, that was our goal for tonight. This is as much a presentation as a listening session. And we heard a lot of great ideas, a lot of stuff that you didn't see in the plan, and that just helps us, again, tailor and kind of finesse the plan moving forward. So thank you for those. So the next steps is we will be summarizing what we heard. We've got our team here is all taking notes, as were others, so we'll be compiling that information. I think I heard some general tendencies towards, more of concept 2, but part of concept 1. So we'll probably end up doing some quick sketches that show what that could look like and circulating that internally, and then building consensus on that to move forward. The next step officially per the contract is to take the information. Again, we'll be providing this to the CRA so that they can post it as well. But going from 2 plans to 1 plan, representing that again, getting feedback, taking that feedback, refining the plan again, and then ultimately presenting that for the final master plan and approval. So again, we do have 4 more steps. Somebody mentioned concept number 8 earlier during the public comments. We'll be getting and working towards those final steps. But it's really summarizing the information, making sure that we are being transparent with the comments that we've heard, blending the 2 options based on some of the preferred elements. Some of the other comments like we just heard about police cars stopping at the street, not being able to go into the site. We've laid out the sidewalks so that they can accommodate vehicles. So we need to maybe articulate some of that information a little bit better. We'll be sure to do that in the future. But it's really summarizing, preparing a revised concept, presenting that again, and then moving forward from there.
Very good. Yes, sir.
I just would like to ask some of the other council members, because we do have leases coming up on the 3 houses that we're discussing tonight, and they will be coming up very shortly. And I just wanted to ask if the other council members, what your feelings are after hearing everyone from the audience as regarding those leases, and whether we extend them for another year, hold this project up, or to help you guys come up with a plan, whether including those 3 houses or not those 3 houses, what y'all's feelings are. So maybe they have some direction as to whether to put those 3 houses in there, put one of them in like they did on one plan, or put none of them in. So I would just like to ask my fellow council members, I can't do that in private. I can only do it at public meetings. But I would like to kind of get a consensus so these guys know where to go with the next plan.
That would definitely be helpful to us, getting clear direction on some of those elements.
Councilmember, any?
What I would suggest then is that what we lease it for a year, that's going to interfere with what you're doing. I think that if the lease is up before we get the final plan and what's in the final plan, that we'll continue for the lease. We'll have to make some kind of amendment to the lease to keep you into the houses and working with those buildings. Nothing gets torn down until probably a period of time from now,
Let me just make a comment. The leases are coming up within the next 30 to 60 days. We have to get these people notice of a certain amount of time if we're going to ask them to vacate that lease. So we're coming down to the wire on this, or we're gonna be carrying this on for another year or another 2 years. We need to, as a council up here, we need to stand up and say what you feel like you want to do based on what people have said here tonight and what people have said online, so these guys know where to go with this plan. If we just keep kicking this down the road, then, things are gonna stay the way they are now. So again, these leases are coming up in 30 to 60 days. We have to give everyone that's in these houses at least a 30-day notice. That's coming up within the next few weeks. So I'm not gonna necessarily make a motion here, but I'd like to at least get a feeling so these guys will know where they're going.
Well, I think that if we get some kind of timeline, first of all, we don't have a final plan. Secondly, when we do get the final plan, we see what the construction time is. These houses may exist for another year before we get this thing built, whatever we end up with, okay? So I think when it comes to the lease, We did it year by year this last time. We'll keep people in there, we'll give them the notice as long as we have the time element presented to us. We can give the notice if it turns out that these buildings will be not used for the purpose they're being used for now. So I would say that we negotiated on a month-to-month basis. You're here. We'll give you time if something happens in the final plan that requires you to move. It's hard to say the time of it.
I would caution council, I mean, as far as, if we could wait until we get this plan approved by you guys before you make any considerations on these.
I wouldn't. So I don't think we want to throw anybody out at this point. But we don't know what we're gonna do. So let's just go out and see what the plan is. As far as if the lease is up, then we'll go month to month. And everybody just stay where they are. Let's see what we're gonna do. There's a point to do anything else.
But the question that comes in, I guess, for the planning team is gonna be, and when their lease is up, are you not renewing it until we've approved the plan? So if the plan comes back and it's something different, we're not having to deal with getting somebody out of the lease.
Well, so when's that gonna be?
Well, that's going on right now. We should have a final proposal back by September, I believe. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So
you feel like in September, we're gonna have a definitive plan?
yes.
Well, at that point, we can make that decision.
Leases are still going on.
Charlie, we just said do month to month.
Is that something that we?
Jay.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
We get a legal opinion on that.
I just wanted to respond to, if the final approved master plan is September, and, I think it's likely that there might maybe some phasing associated with that, depending on dollars and construction availability and everything. If we have an approved plan in September, we still then have construction documents to prepare and permitting, and that process can go on for another 9 to 10, 12 months, depending on the scope of work. So keep that in mind as you're considering, the timeframe of the leases, that yes, we may have an approved master plan in September, but then we also need construction documents, permitting, securing construction funding. So that's going to add several months additionally. Just want to be transparent with that overall timeframe.
Well, I think too, that they're gonna be dislocated, and we need to be able to plan for what that's gonna be as well. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Michelle Backus. I'm a lifelong resident here. My mother was born and raised in Sebring. But my concern is that, Mr. Ivy, you sounded like you'd already made up your mind about leveling the houses. That may have been a misstatement. But my bigger concern is, like this gentleman just spoke, what kind of environmental studies have been done that need to be done? How much money is involved is the city council ready to spend that kind of money? So it sounds like it's a long-range plan, not an immediate plan. So can we get clarification on that and maybe have some better information? Thank you.
Part of the construction documents and permitting tasks that are not currently under our approved scope, but it was a future task. We have environmental studies. We have our arboricultural services where they're going to do a full tree evaluation. A lot of trees that sometimes look big and beautiful have structural issues, so we want to evaluate that to make sure that they're safe to keep. So there are a number of steps beyond the master planning process that we'll be taking as well, not only construction drawings, but studies.
Well, maybe I should better articulate what I was trying to say. I don't know what the final, does anybody out there else know what the final plan is? No, I don't either. But if I made it sound like I do, I don't know. So the point I was trying to make is that bring in the time frame for construction, bring in the time frame for bringing back the final plan. We will work with the people in those buildings, and they will, like we said, we're not going to kick anybody out at the last minute, So that was what I was trying to articulate. We don't know what the time frame would be, but I think there's some time built in. And our attorney's been waiting to say something.
the bearer of bad news. When it comes to the disposition of real property in the CRA district, excuse me, the city would be bound by the same law that required the CRA to undertake those proposals and go through that proposal process for the different buildings that it is looking to dispose of. The city would have to do the same thing for leases on these two houses. The Second District Court of Appeal, about 8 months ago or thereabouts, said that is applicable no matter when the property was purchased or whether it was purchased specifically for CRA purposes or not. So if, no matter what we do going forward, if you wish to lease those buildings to anybody for any duration, we need to go through the same proposal process that the CRA board has gone through for its.
Put it on RFP?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
I realize that's cumbersome and seems obnoxious.
So that means opening it up to anybody.
If you are receiving proposals, you aren't required to undertake or to pick any particular proposal. You could continue to lease it to the Civic Historical Society, but you have to go through the process. The leases end August 5. That process takes a bit, as the CRA would attest. So that's something to bear in mind.
So, Dave, did you have any more to say?
No,
I think you got that gentleman.
My question earlier, my comment was that the consulting firm obviously took little or no interest in history, historical heritage, etc. So my question is, this group that was chosen or was appointed, is that the final decision? In other words, they've given you 2 or 3 options. You're just going to choose from the 2 or 3 options. There are no other options that would come from another. Quite frankly, I think that another consulting firm should have been hired. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. I mean, you can talk to me if you want offline, but no, we've contracted with them. We're moving forward with them. We're not going to be hiring another firm at this point. We're going to continue the process and hold our end of the contract with them. So you're accepting their. We're working with them. Yes.
It's a partnership.
Yes.
Can I say something?
Our public comment time is over, so I'm sorry. You can talk to me afterwards if you'd like.
That gets long.
You can yell at the crowd, they can't stop you, man.
Your plans is fine.
I will turn it back over to Mr. Ivy.
I just want to say this one thing. Your plans are fine and dandy. I've raised my kids here. I bring my granddaughter, my grandkids. When I bring them here, when I bring my grandkids here, the playground is too small. All right? It's absolutely too small. It needs improvement. I agree with that. But what's going to happen on the other side of the track of that CRC? Okay? What's going to happen over there? I'm afraid that it's going to be so modified over here that the people over there are not going to, they're going to be afraid to come over here because it's going to be too modified. So what's going to happen over there? That's all it is. Let the board work on that. Thanks.
I have one thing to say. If you've already decided, you've already hired these people, why in the world did we ever come? Exactly. Our vote doesn't really matter. You've decided that this is what you're going to do. You've hired them. And I understand that you're going to make modifications, but it appears to me that you've already made the decision.
No, ma'am, that's not correct. We hired this firm back in April to come in and do the waterfront design. It has to go to city council for final approval after we've gone through a number of these public meetings, but this is the process. I mean, this is how we hear you, and this is how we find out what it is that the public wants. I mean, there's no other way for us to know.
All right, with that, I'm going to call for adjournment. Thank you for coming.